Hey, Wide Awake family. If you see this, it's your sign to smash that like button. Yes, you listening right now. That way YouTube shows you more amazing stories like this one. We love you all. Now enjoy the stories.
I used to think goodbye was the safest part of the date. The awkward stuff is over, the decision has been made, and all that is left is distance. A few steps, a wave, the night swallowing someone whole so you can breathe again. That belief did not survive this one. Now goodbye feels like a trap, like the moment you relax is the moment you stop watching the right direction. The night itself had been fine. Not great, not terrible, just normal enough to lower my guard. We met at a small boardwalk near the water, the kind with cheap lights strung along the railings and food stands that close early. The waves were loud enough to cover silence. People were still walking around, couples and families and groups of friends pretending the night was warmer than it actually was. He was easy to be around. Not pushy, not intense. He talked a lot, but it felt like nervous talking, not control. I remember thinking he was harmless. I remember thinking I would forget him by morning. We walked for a while, stopping to watch the water, leaning against the railing. Nothing weird happened. No red flags jumped out at me. If anything, I was a little bored, which usually means safe. When it got late, we walked back toward the parking lot. My car was closer than his, so we stopped near it. The lot was mostly empty now, just a few cars scattered under flickering lights. The air smelled like salt and asphalt. We stood there for a second, that familiar end moment. He smiled, waved, and turned to walk away toward the darker side of the lot. I watched him go. I remember noticing how his footsteps sounded lighter than I expected. I waited until he was far enough away that I could not see his face clearly anymore. Then my phone buzzed. I smiled automatically, expecting a safe at home message or something polite. The text read that he was already behind me. My heart dropped so fast it felt like I missed a step. I froze. The world seemed to narrow around me. The sound of the waves faded. The lights hummed louder. My fingers felt numb around my phone. I read it again slower, like that would change the meaning. Already behind me. I did not turn around. Every instinct screamed not to. I stood there staring at my car door, trying to breathe normally. My reflection in the window looked warped, stretched by fear. I typed back asking what he meant, my hands shaking so badly I kept hitting the wrong keys. The message sent with a typo I did not bother fixing. No response. I listened. Behind me, the parking lot was quiet. No footsteps. No breathing. No movement I could pin down. Just the distant water and the buzz of a broken light. I slowly unlocked my car, the click sounding way too loud. My hand hovered over the handle, my whole body tense. I told myself it was a joke. A bad one, sure, but maybe he thought it was funny. Maybe he was still walking away and messing with me. But my body did not believe that. I opened the car door and slid inside as fast as I could, slamming it shut and locking the doors immediately. My heart was pounding so hard my chest hurt. I checked the mirrors with shaking hands. The lot looked empty. His path away from me was empty. My phone buzzed again. This time, a photo. I did not want to open it. I sat there for a full 10 seconds, staring at the notification, my stomach twisting. Then I forced myself to tap it. The photo showed the back of my head. My hair, my jacket, my posture. Taken from a few feet away. The angle was wrong for a selfie. Too low, too close, too real. My throat closed up. I felt like I could not get enough air. My hands started shaking uncontrollably. I dropped the phone into my lap and checked the rearview mirror again, more carefully this time. Nothing. I scanned the side mirrors, the front windshield, the rows of cars. Nothing moved. My phone buzzed again. Another text. It said I was really still. It said he liked that. Panic surged so hard I almost cried out. I started the car. The engine roared into life in the quiet lot. The sound felt like a shield. I put the car in drive without thinking and pulled out of the spot too fast, tires squealing slightly. As I drove toward the exit, I checked the mirrors constantly. I half expected to see him standing there, smiling, waiting like nothing was wrong. The lot disappeared behind me. The road opened up. Street lights passed rhythmically. My phone buzzed again. I did not look at it. I kept driving. My heart did not slow down. My hands stayed tight on the wheel. Every car behind me felt too close. Every shadow on the sidewalk looked like a person stepping out. I made a turn I did not need to make, then another, then another. I did not want to go straight home. I did not want him to know where I live. My phone buzzed again. I finally glanced at it at a red light. Another photo. This one showed my car from behind. The license plate clear. Taken from a low angle like someone crouching. My blood ran cold. The light turned green and I drove again, my foot heavy on the gas. My thoughts raced, crashing into each other. How could he be taking these? How could he be moving faster than me? How could he be behind me when I was watching the mirrors nonstop? I checked the back seat. Empty. I checked again, my eyes darting, my chest tight. Empty. My phone buzzed again. This time, the message said I did not need to drive so fast. It said he could keep up. Tears blurred my vision. Fear made everything feel unreal, like I was watching this happen to someone else. I forced myself to breathe, to focus on the road. I pulled into a crowded gas station suddenly, swerving a little as I turned. Bright lights flooded the area. People everywhere. Cars coming and going. Noise. I parked crookedly near the entrance and sat there shaking, my heart pounding. My phone buzzed again. No photo this time. Just a message saying he would wait. I scanned the station desperately. People walked in and out. Someone laughed. Someone argued on the phone. A kid ran past chasing someone else. I did not see him. That scared me more than if I had. I stayed there for almost half an hour, pretending to scroll, pretending to be calm, waiting for something to happen. My phone stayed quiet. Eventually, I drove home, taking the longest route I could think of. I checked every mirror constantly. I pulled over once just to look around. Nothing followed me. When I finally reached my place, I parked a block away and walked the rest of the way, keys clenched between my fingers. Every step felt heavy. Every sound made me flinch. Inside, I locked the door and leaned against it, breathing hard. My legs felt weak. I slid down to the floor and sat there for a long time listening. My phone buzzed one last time. A final message. It said goodnight. It said he liked watching me drive. I blocked his number immediately, deleted the messages, turned my phone off completely. That night, I barely slept. Every small sound made me jolt awake. Every shadow felt wrong. In the morning, my phone was still off when I woke up. I did not turn it on for hours. I do not know how he did it. I do not know how close he really was. I do not know if he ever stopped. But now, every time someone waves goodbye and turns to walk away, I wait. I wait to feel my phone buzz. The weird thing is that I almost missed it, that first hint. I could have brushed it off as bad breath or nerves or something stupid and harmless. I think about that a lot now. How close I was to just laughing it off and going home like nothing happened. How sometimes danger does not announce itself, it just waits for you to ignore it. The date itself was fine. Not amazing, not terrible. Just fine in that boring way that makes you relax your guard. We met at a small outdoor food spot near a park that barely anyone used after dark. Picnic tables, string lights wrapped around trees, a couple of food trucks still open. The air smelled like fried food and grass. It felt chill. Safe. She was easy to talk to. That helped a lot. No awkward silences, no forced jokes. She listened when I talked and laughed at the right times. She did this thing where she tilted her head slightly when she was interested, like she was really paying attention. I remember thinking she felt grounded, solid, like someone who knew exactly where she was at all times. We ate, walked around, talked about random stuff. Nothing heavy. Nothing creepy. I kept waiting for that moment where something felt off, because I am used to that by now, but it never came. If anything, the night felt smoother the longer it went on. When it got late, we walked toward where we had parked. Her car was closer, so we stopped there first. The park beside the lot was dark, just a stretch of dirt paths and trees with no lights. Crickets were loud. Everything felt quiet in that way that makes you lower your voice without realizing it. We stood there for a second, that awkward end of date pause where neither person knows what to do with their hands. Then she smiled and leaned in to kiss me goodnight. It was quick, soft, normal, until it was not. The second her lips touched mine, I tasted dirt. Not like a hint. Not like imagination. Full-on dirt. Dry, bitter, gritty, like I had just face planted into the ground and breathed in too hard. It coated my tongue instantly, stuck to the roof of my mouth. My body reacted before my brain did. I pulled back fast, gagging slightly, my heart slamming in my chest. I wiped my mouth with the back of my hand, confused and embarrassed all at once. She did not react. She just watched me calmly, head tilted slightly, like she was waiting to see if I would figure something out. I tried to laugh it off, telling myself it was something I ate. Maybe some spice. Maybe the wind kicked something up. Anything but what my brain was starting to suggest. Then I heard it. A scraping sound. Slow, deliberate. Metal against dirt. My stomach dropped. The sound came from the dark part of the park. Not close, but not far either. Rhythmic, steady, like someone digging without rushing. Scrape, pause, scrape. I froze. She smiled wider. I asked if she heard that. My voice sounded wrong, thin, and shaky. She nodded. She said it was almost done. My skin crawled. I looked toward the trees, straining to see anything in the darkness. Nothing moved. No figures. No lights. Just shadows and the sound of metal biting into earth. Scrape. Pause. Scrape. My mouth still tasted like dirt. No matter how much I swallowed or wiped my tongue, it stayed there, dry and wrong. I took a step back instinctively. She stepped forward to match it. Not aggressive, just keeping the distance the same. I asked what was going on. She told me I should not worry. She said it was not for me. She said it was just part of the routine. That word again. Routine. My heart was racing so hard I thought I might pass out. Every instinct screamed at me to run, though my legs felt stiff, like they did not trust the ground anymore. The scraping stopped. The silence that followed was worse. I could hear my own breathing, too loud, too fast. Then a dull thud, like dirt being tossed onto something hollow. I backed away again, farther this time, until my leg hit my car. The metal was cold through my jeans. Real. Grounding. She watched me carefully, still smiling, like she was curious how I would handle this part. I asked what she had done. She shrugged lightly and said she liked to be prepared. She said goodbyes were easier when everything was already taken care of. Taken care of what? I did not ask. I did not want the answer. I opened my car door with shaking hands and got in fast, slamming it shut and locking it immediately. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt. Through the window, I could see her standing there calmly, hands at her sides, completely unbothered. I started the engine. It sputtered for a terrifying second before turning over. The sound felt way too loud in the quiet lot. As I pulled away, my headlights swept across the edge of the park. For just a split second, I saw it. A mound of fresh dirt. Dark, uneven. And beside it, the handle of a shovel sticking out of the ground at an angle. I hit the gas. I did not look back. The drive home was a blur. Every shadow on the road looked like movement. Every bump felt like I had hit something. My mouth still tasted like dirt the entire way, no matter how much I spit or swallowed. When I got home, I ran straight to the bathroom and rinsed my mouth over and over until my jaw ached. I brushed my teeth twice, then a third time. The taste faded slightly, but never fully left. I stared at myself in the mirror afterward, breathing hard. My face looked pale, my eyes too wide. I looked like someone who had seen something they were not supposed to. I checked my phone. No messages from her. No missed calls. Nothing. Like the night ended exactly where it was supposed to. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard that scraping sound again. Slow, patient, methodical. The next morning, I drove past the park in daylight, telling myself I needed proof that I was overreacting. That fear had filled in blanks that were not real. The area where I thought I saw the mound looked normal. Dirt paths, trees, nothing disturbed. No shovel, no sign of digging. But the taste came back suddenly, strong and bitter, like my body remembered even if the ground did not. I blocked her number, deleted the chat, told myself to forget it. But sometimes when I kiss someone now, even just a quick goodnight kiss, I pause for a second afterward waiting to see if I taste dirt again. I knew the night was wrong before the question even came up. There was this tight feeling in my stomach that showed up early and never left, like my body was bracing for something my brain had not caught up to yet. I remember thinking I should have trusted that feeling, but I always think that later. In the moment, I just kept telling myself to relax and not be dramatic. We met at a small neighborhood bistro tucked between a laundromat and a closed pet store. Warm lights, quiet music, chalkboard menu with smudge writing. It felt harmless, familiar. The kind of place where nothing memorable ever really happens. I liked that. I wanted the night to be forgettable. He was already seated when I arrived, scrolling on his phone. He smiled when he saw me and stood up, pulling my chair out like he had practiced it. Polite, calm, normal. That word again. We ordered food, talked about work, complained about random things. It was boring in a way that felt comforting. I started to relax a little, my shoulders dropping without me noticing. I remember thinking maybe this would just be another average night that faded by morning. Halfway through dinner, the conversation shifted. Not suddenly. It drifted there, like conversations do when people run out of safe topics. He started talking about the future in vague terms, where he wanted to live someday, what kind of life he imagined for himself. Nothing intense, just enough to sound thoughtful. Then he asked if I wanted kids. The question itself was not shocking. People ask that sometimes, even when it is way too early. It is awkward, but not unheard of. What got me was the way he asked it. Too calm. Too confident, like he already knew the answer. I hesitated. Not because I did not have an opinion, but because it felt weird to answer honestly in that moment. I took a second too long, I guess. I was still forming the words in my head. That is when he leaned closer. His voice dropped. Not playful, not teasing. Steady and low. He said it was too late. My stomach dropped so hard it felt like the chair disappeared under me. For a split second, my brain refused to process it. I laughed weakly, assuming he was joking. Dark humor. Bad timing. Anything. But his face did not change. He leaned back like he had just stated a fact, like the conversation could move on now that it was settled. I asked what he meant. My voice sounded thin to my own ears. He told me I did not need to worry about decisions anymore. He said some things happened whether you planned for them or not. He said the body was more honest than the mind. My chest tightened. My hands went cold. I suddenly felt very aware of myself, of my skin, of my breathing, of how trapped I felt sitting there with people all around us who had no idea anything was wrong. I told him to stop. I told him he was being weird. He smiled slightly and said people always said that at first. That word again. Always. I pushed my chair back, the legs scraping loudly against the floor. A couple at a nearby table glanced over, annoyed, then went back to their conversation. Nobody was paying attention. Nobody noticed the way my heart was pounding. I told him I was leaving. He did not try to stop me. He just watched calmly, like this was another step in a process. He said I should sit back down. He said leaving would not change anything. That scared me more than if he had grabbed me. I stood there for a moment, frozen between fight and flight. Then I turned and walked toward the door. Every step felt heavy, like the floor was pulling at my feet. Outside, the night air hit me hard. I gulped it down, breathing fast, my hands shaking. The street looked normal. Cars passed. People laughed somewhere down the block. Life moving on. I started walking fast, not wanting to stand still long enough to think. My thoughts raced, colliding with each other. Too late echoed in my head over and over, each time sounding more real. I told myself it was just words, that he was messing with me, that nothing had actually happened. But my body did not agree. As I walked, I noticed a strange pressure low in my stomach. Not pain. Not exactly. Just awareness, like a sensation I could not place but could not ignore either. Panic flared again. I pulled my jacket tighter around myself and kept moving, my mind spinning through possibilities I did not want to name. I told myself not to jump to conclusions. That fear makes your brain dramatic. When I got home, I locked the door behind me and leaned against it, breathing hard. My place felt safe at first. Familiar, quiet. I kicked off my shoes and sat on the couch, trying to calm down. Then I noticed something on my kitchen counter. A small white envelope. No stamp. No return address. My name written on the front in neat handwriting. My heart started racing again. My hands shook as I picked it up. It felt heavier than it should have. Inside was a folded piece of paper. No long message, no explanation. Just a date written clearly in the center. 9 months from now. My stomach churned. I felt dizzy, like the room was spinning slightly. I told myself it was a coincidence, a cruel joke, something meant to scare me. But the handwriting looked familiar in a way I could not explain, like I had seen it before without realizing it. I sat there for a long time, staring at that date, my thoughts blurring together. I tried to think back over the night, every detail, searching for something I had missed, something that could explain this without breaking reality. Nothing made sense. I threw the paper away and took out the trash immediately, like getting it out of my place would make it less real. I washed my hands even though they were not dirty. That night, I barely slept. Every time I drifted off, I woke up again with my heart racing, that phrase echoing in my head. Too late. Over the next few days, I noticed changes, small things at first. Nausea in the morning, exhaustion that felt deeper than normal tiredness. I told myself it was stress, anxiety, my body reacting to fear. But the calendar on my phone kept pulling my attention. Every time I opened it, my eyes went to that date, even though there was nothing written there. It felt marked anyway, like my brain had highlighted it without permission. I blocked his number, deleted the chat, reported nothing because I did not know how to explain any of this without sounding unhinged. A week later, I found another envelope in my mailbox. Same handwriting. Inside was a single line. The body remembers before the mind does. I sat on my floor and cried then quietly, trying not to panic, trying not to let my thoughts run too far ahead of me. I made an appointment with a doctor. I told myself I was being responsible, not paranoid. Waiting for that appointment was the longest stretch of time I can remember. Every day felt thick and slow. Every sensation felt amplified. I do not know what the results will say yet. I do know that sometimes late at night, I catch myself pressing a hand to my stomach, listening for something that should not be there. And I hate that part of me is afraid of the answer.
Hey guys, really sorry to interrupt. If you're still listening, then you're enjoying the story so far. And if you are enjoying, then please hit that like button. That's all I ask of you. Thanks so much. Now back to the stories.
I thought the idea of connection was just something people said when they wanted a moment to feel bigger than it really was. Like a word you use when you do not know how else to describe mild interest. I did not think it could be a trigger. I did not think a sentence could rearrange a whole room. I definitely did not think it could leave me sitting at a table wondering if the rest of the world had stepped out without telling me. We met at a mid-range restaurant near the highway. Not fancy, not fast food. The kind of place people go when they want to pretend the night matters but still want to be home by a reasonable time. Booths with high backs, warm lights, soft music that nobody really listens to. It was busy when I got there. Couples everywhere. Talking, laughing, leaning close across tables. She waved me over from a booth near the middle. I noticed right away how full the place was. No empty tables. Servers weaving between chairs like they had done it 1,000 times. It felt safe in that boring way. Nothing strange happens in places like that. That is what I told myself. The date started fine. Not amazing. Not awkward. Just smooth enough that I stopped checking the time every few minutes. She talked a lot, but not too much. Told stories that went nowhere but were easy to listen to. I nodded, laughed when it felt right, drank my water too fast. I noticed small things that I ignored. How she never looked around the room offering quick glances the way most people do. How her focus never drifted from me. How the noise around us felt slightly muffled, like cotton had been packed into my ears. Food came. Plates clinked. The smell of cooked meat and bread filled the air. I relaxed a little. My shoulders dropped without me noticing. Halfway through eating, she leaned forward slightly and said she felt a connection. Not dramatically, not intense, just calm, certain. The moment the words landed, the lights flickered. Not a full blackout, just a quick dip like someone had brushed a hand over a switch. My heart skipped. I glanced around instinctively. Every other couple was gone. Not leaving, not standing up. Gone. Plates still sat on tables, half-eaten. Drinks untouched. Jackets draped over chairbacks. Phones glowing on tabletops with unread notifications. but the people were gone. Every booth around us empty. Every chair vacant. The sound disappeared with them. No music, no clatter, no voices, just the low hum of the lights and my own breathing suddenly way too loud. I froze. My brain refused to catch up. It felt like buffering, like if I waited a second, everything would snap back and I would feel stupid for panicking. She did not react. She smiled softly and leaned back in her seat, like something had gone exactly as expected. I stood up so fast my knees hit the table. The movement echoed through the room. The sound felt wrong, too clear, like there was nothing left to absorb it. I looked toward the kitchen. Empty. Swinging door gently moving back and forth like someone had just passed through, but nobody there. I looked toward the entrance. The door was closed. Lights still on. No movement outside the windows. My hands started shaking. I felt cold all over. I asked where everyone went. My voice sounded thin in the quiet. She tilted her head slightly and said it always happened when things lined up. She said connection narrowed things down. She said the room only kept what mattered. That sentence made my stomach drop. I walked a few steps away from the table, scanning the place. I passed booths I had seen occupied minutes ago. A couple with matching hoodies. Two people arguing quietly. A group celebrating something with a cake. All gone. Their stuff still there like placeholders. I touched a jacket draped over a chair, still warm. Panic surged hard enough to make my chest hurt. I turned back to her, my heart pounding. She was still sitting calmly, hands folded, watching me like she was waiting for me to catch up. I asked how this was possible. She said possible was a flexible idea. She said rooms listen better than people. I backed away until my legs hit another booth. I felt trapped, like the space had shrunk without me noticing. The walls felt closer, the ceiling lower. I tried my phone, no signal. No bars. Screen dimmed slightly like it did not want to wake up. She told me not to worry. She said this part never lasted long. She said once the room finished deciding, things would go back to normal. Deciding what? I asked that, my voice cracked. She said deciding us. That was when I noticed something else. The empty tables were closer than before. Not physically moved, but the distance between them felt shorter, like the room had subtly folded inward, tightening around our booth. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. My mouth felt dry. I swallowed hard. I tried to leave. I walked for the door, my steps slow and careful. Halfway there, the lights flickered again. The door was gone. Not open, not closed. Gone. Just a flat wall where it should have been, painted the same color like it had always been that way. I laughed weakly, the sound bouncing back at me. My brain scrambled for explanations that did not involve losing my mind. Maybe it was a prank. Maybe I was having some kind of episode. Maybe I had fallen asleep at the table and this was a dream. I pinched my arm hard enough to hurt. The pain was sharp and real. She stood up then and walked toward me slowly. Her footsteps sounded too loud in the empty room. She said I did not need to be afraid. She said most people never got this far. She said connection was rare. I backed away instinctively. She stopped, respecting the distance, which somehow made it worse, like she knew she did not need to rush. I asked what happened to the others. She glanced around the room like she was checking something. She said they were still there, just not present. She said the room filtered them out the same way people tune out background noise. I thought about the jackets, the phones, the half-eaten food. My stomach twisted. I asked what would happen next. She smiled wider and said that depended on me. The lights flickered again, longer this time. Shadows stretched along the walls, warping slightly like they were breathing. I realized then that the room was not just empty. It was attentive. Every surface felt focused. Every corner felt like it was leaning in. I took a step backward and felt resistance, like pushing against thick air. My movements felt heavier the farther I went from the table. She told me to sit back down. She said fighting it made things worse. I shook my head, panic spiking. I did not want to sit. Sitting felt like agreeing to something I did not understand. The lights flickered again. When they stabilized, I noticed something new. One table was gone. Not empty. Gone. The space where it had been was smooth, uninterrupted floor. I looked back at our booth. It felt closer now. Too close. I felt like I was running out of room without moving. She watched me carefully, eyes bright. She said the room lacked clarity. She said uncertainty took up space. I realized then that every flicker happened after something was said, after a choice, after a realization. I forced myself to breathe, forced my thoughts to slow. I told her I did not feel the same connection. The words felt heavy leaving my mouth. The lights flickered violently, buzzing loud enough to make me flinch. When they steadied, more tables were gone. Just gone. The room felt smaller, tighter, closer. She frowned slightly for the first time. Not angry, disappointed, like I had broken a pattern. She said that was not how it usually went. I told her I did not care. I turned and walked toward the wall where the door had been, even though it was gone. Every step felt like wading through water. My chest burned. The lights flickered one last time. The sound came back all at once. Music, voices, clinking plates, laughter. The room was full again. People everywhere, mid-conversation, mid-bite, completely unaware of anything strange. The door was back. I stood there shaking, heart pounding, trying to figure out if I was about to pass out. Servers rushed past me, annoyed at me blocking an aisle. I looked back at the booth. She was gone. Her plate gone, her drink gone, her jacket gone. Like she had never been there. I stood there for a long time before anyone noticed something was off. When I finally sat down, my legs gave out under me. I left without paying. Nobody stopped me. Outside, the night felt too loud, too real. Cars passed. People laughed. Life continued like nothing had happened. But when I got home, I could not stop thinking about the way the room had listened. Sometimes now, when a place gets quiet suddenly, I feel that same pressure, like something is narrowing things down again. And every time someone talks about connection too confidently, my chest tightens before I can stop it. The first thing I noticed was not fear. It was confusion. Fear came later, slow and sticky. But confusion hit first, like my brain tripped over something it could not name yet. I remember thinking I must be tired or distracted or reading too much into things, because the alternative felt too stupid to consider. Nothing scary ever starts as scary. It starts as off. We met at a small night market that only opened on weekends. Food trucks, string lights, sheet music playing from somewhere too far away to enjoy. It was crowded enough to feel safe, but not packed. I liked that. I liked having people around even if I did not talk to them. It made everything feel less personal. He was already there when I arrived, standing near a table with paper menus taped to it. He smiled when he saw me and waved. Normal smile. Normal wave. Nothing wrong yet. We grabbed food and found a small standing table near the edge of the market, close enough to the street that I could hear cars passing. We talked about random stuff. School, work, nothing important. I remember thinking he was a little quiet, but in a comfortable way. Not awkward. Not intense. Just chill. Then I noticed his eyes drifting. At first, it was subtle. He would be looking at me, nodding along, then his gaze would slide slightly to the side. Not away. Past me. Like something over my shoulder had caught his attention. I assumed he was people watching. Everyone does that in places like this. But every time it happened, his smile changed. It got wider. Not suddenly. Gradually, like someone slowly turning up a dimmer switch. His lips stretched just a little more each time, teeth showing longer, corners of his mouth pulling tighter. I glanced behind me once, casually expecting to see someone loud or weird or interesting. There was nothing. Just a couple walking past and a trash can near the curb. I turned back and laughed it off in my head. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I had already decided this was going to be a bad date and was looking for reasons. We kept talking. I tried to focus on his words, but my attention kept snapping back to his face. Every few seconds, his eyes flicked over my shoulder again. Every time, his smile stretched wider. It started to make my skin crawl. I stopped mid-thought at one point, realizing I was talking to fill space. He had not reacted to anything I said in a while. He was nodding, sure, but his attention felt split, like I was no longer the main thing in front of him. I asked what he was looking at. He did not answer right away. He just smiled, wider than before. His eyes stayed fixed somewhere behind me. That was when fear finally showed up. It settled in my stomach, heavy and cold. My heart started beating faster. I felt suddenly very aware of my back, of the space directly behind me, of how exposed it felt not to see it. I did not turn around. I told myself there was nothing there, that if there was something, I would hear it, feel it. Someone would bump into me, say something. But nobody did. The market noise continued like nothing was wrong. Laughter, music, sizzling food, life moving on. His smile kept growing. It was not a happy smile anymore. It was stretched, almost strained, like his face was trying to hold something in place. I shifted my weight, stepping slightly to the side so I could see past him instead. His eyes tracked the movement instantly, adjusting so they stayed locked on the same point behind me. That made my chest tighten. I realized then that whatever he was looking at was not moving, or it was moving exactly with me. My hands started shaking. I wrapped them around my drink just to give them something to do. The plastic cup crinkled loudly in the quiet space between us. He leaned forward slightly, elbows on the table, still smiling. His eyes were bright now, excited, almost proud. I felt trapped. Turning around felt like a mistake I could not undo. Like once I saw it, whatever it was would know I had acknowledged it. I tried to step away from the table, pretending to stretch or adjust my back. The second I moved, his smile widened again, teeth showing fully now. His jaw looked tense, like it hurt to hold it that way. I asked again what he was looking at, my voice shaky despite my effort to stay calm. He finally responded, but not to the question. He said he liked nights like this. He said it was rare when things lined up so perfectly. That answer made no sense, and my fear spiked. I felt a strange pressure between my shoulder blades, not a touch, just awareness, like standing too close to the edge of something tall and feeling the drop behind you. I still did not turn around. I could not. I took a step backward, bumping lightly into something solid. My breath caught. It did not feel like a person, not soft, not warm. It felt fixed, like a pole or a wall that should not have been there. My back pressed against it, and the pressure increased slightly like it was leaning into me. My heart slammed against my ribs. I froze, every muscle locking up. His smile split wider than I thought possible. His eyes crinkled at the corners. He looked thrilled. He said something about me finally noticing. I could not hear my own breathing over the blood rushing in my ears. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. I wanted to disappear. Instead, I stood there pressed against whatever was behind me, too scared to turn my head even an inch. The pressure increased again. Not pushing, just present, intentional. I felt suddenly very small. I realized then that nobody around us was paying attention. People passed by, chatting, laughing, walking right past the space behind me like nothing was there, like I was leaning against empty air. That somehow made it worse. His smile stopped changing. It reached its limit and stayed there, frozen and wide. His eyes flicked briefly to my face, then back behind me like he was checking reactions between two things. I whispered that I needed to go. He nodded slowly. His smile did not fade. He said something about it being understandable the first time. First time. I did not ask what he meant. I did not want answers anymore. I just wanted distance. I stepped forward abruptly, breaking contact with whatever had been behind me. The pressure vanished instantly, like it had never been there at all. I staggered slightly, my balance off. The space behind me felt empty again. Wrong, but empty. He watched me carefully, smile softening just a little, like he was disappointed but patient. I did not turn around even then. I walked sideways away from the table, keeping my eyes on him, my heart pounding. Every instinct screamed at me not to look. I backed into the crowd and then turned and walked fast, not running but close. I pushed through people, apologizing automatically, my eyes fixed straight ahead. I did not look back. I did not look behind me. I did not stop until I reached my car. Inside, I locked the doors and sat there shaking, staring at my reflection in the dark window. My face looked pale and unreal. My shoulders hunched like I was still bracing for something. After a few minutes, I forced myself to check the back seat. Empty. I checked the mirrors, the street, the market in the distance. Normal. I drove home with my shoulders tense the whole way, resisting the urge to glance into the rearview mirror more than necessary. Every time I stopped at a light, I felt like something might be standing just out of sight. When I got home, I locked the door and leaned against it, breathing hard. I stood there for a long time before moving, listening to the quiet. Later that night, I replayed the moment over and over. The smile, the stare, the pressure, the way nobody else noticed. The worst part is that I still do not know what was behind me. And I know that if I had turned around, I might not have been able to leave. I thought the worst thing someone could show you on a first date was an old cringe photo. The kind where you smile politely and pretend it is cute even though you want to crawl under the table. I did not expect a picture that would make my brain stop working entirely. The kind that makes your body react before your thoughts can catch up. The kind that changes how safe your own bed feels afterward. We met at a quiet coffee place that stayed open late for people who did not want to go home yet. Soft music, low lights, mismatched couches instead of tables. The kind of place where everyone whispers without realizing it. I liked that. It felt calm. Anonymous, like nothing bad could happen there. She seemed normal. I know I always say that, but it matters. She did not feel intense or strange. She laughed easily, talked about random stuff, complained about work in a way that made sense. Nothing felt forced. Nothing felt rehearsed. We sat on a couch near the back, drinks balanced on a low table between us. I remember thinking how tired I was, how the day had dragged, how nice it felt to just sit and let someone else talk for a bit. I let my guard down without even noticing. At some point, the conversation drifted toward family, childhood stuff, harmless territory. She mentioned her parents, her old house, little stories that sounded familiar in a vague way. Then she said she had baby photos on her phone, asked if I wanted to see them. That did not feel weird. People do that. Overshare a little. Show embarrassing pictures. It is awkward, but normal. She unlocked her phone and started scrolling. The first few photos were what I expected. Grainy pictures of a baby in a crib, a toddler with messy hair, birthday candles. Nothing strange. She narrated them casually, pointing out details, laughing at herself. I leaned closer to see the screen better. Then she swiped again. The photo showed a baby sleeping. For a split second, my brain accepted it as just another picture. Then everything slammed together at once. The baby was me. Not in a metaphor way. Not in a vague resemblance way. It was my face, my nose, my mouth. My exact features, just smaller, softer, younger. The lighting was dim, like the photo had been taken at night. The angle was familiar in a way that made my stomach drop. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. I felt dizzy, like the room had tilted slightly. She kept talking, completely calm, pointing at the photo like it was nothing special. She mentioned how peaceful I looked, how I always slept on my side. I stopped hearing the rest. I recognized the blanket. It was mine. The faded pattern, the small tear near the edge, the one I still use because I never bothered to replace it. My hands went cold. My chest tightened. I felt like I could not get enough air. I asked when that photo was taken. My voice sounded far away, like it was coming from someone else. She said yesterday. Yesterday, while I was sleeping. I laughed automatically, a sharp sound that did not match how I felt. My brain scrambled for explanations. Joke. Prank. Coincidence. Editing. Anything. I told her that was not possible. I told her she must be mistaken. She tilted her head slightly, studying my face, then scrolled back and showed me the timestamp. Date, time, location. My apartment. My address. I felt sick. I grabbed the phone without thinking, my fingers shaking so badly I almost dropped it. I zoomed in on the photo, searching desperately for something off, a flaw, a sign it was fake. It was real. I recognized the corner of my room, the angle of the lamp, the way the light fell across the bed, the pillow I had pushed aside before falling asleep. I did not remember anyone being there. I never wake up when people enter my place. That thought hit me hard, made my stomach churn. I asked her how she got that photo. The words came out clipped, uneven. She shrugged like it was obvious. She said she liked documenting beginnings. She said it helped her feel connected. She said I looked so calm that she did not want to wake me. My heart was racing. My skin crawled. I felt exposed in a way I could not explain. I scrolled through her phone further without asking. My hands moved on their own, panic driving them. More baby photos appeared. Different angles. Different nights. Me sleeping. Me curled on my side. Me on my back. My face relaxed and unaware. Some photos showed me in different clothes. Some showed me without the blanket. Some were close enough that I could see individual eyelashes. I felt like I was going to throw up. Mixed in between those were real baby photos. Her as a child. Other babies I did not recognize, all labeled neatly by date. My photos were mixed in like they belonged there. I handed the phone back slowly, my fingers numb. I looked at her, really looked this time. Her expression was soft, fond, like she was showing me something meaningful. I asked how long she had been watching me. She did not answer directly. She said time felt different when you were paying attention. She said she had always liked quiet moments best. I stood up so fast the table rattled. My drink sloshed dangerously close to the edge. A couple people glanced over. I did not care. I told her I was leaving. She looked genuinely confused by that. She said she thought I would understand. She said she wanted me to see how it all started. Started what? I backed away, my heart pounding. I felt like the walls were closing in. Every shadow felt wrong. Every person in the room suddenly felt too close. She stood up too, moving slowly, not reaching for me. She said she did not mean to scare me. She said I should be grateful she kept records. She said memories fade, but photos last. I turned and walked away without responding. My legs felt shaky, but I forced myself to keep moving. I pushed through the door into the cold night air, gulping it down like I had been underwater. I did not stop walking till I reached my car. My hands shook as I unlocked it. I got inside and locked the doors immediately, scanning the area like she might appear out of nowhere. I drove home on autopilot, barely remembering the route. Every red light felt like a trap. Every car behind me felt too close. When I got to my apartment, I stood outside the door for a long time, keys in hand, afraid of what I might find inside. Everything looked normal. The lock was untouched. No signs of a break-in. Inside, my room looked exactly as I had left it. Bed made the same messy way. Blanket folded wrong. Lamp in the same spot. But now it felt wrong. I checked my phone. No messages from her. No photos sent. Nothing. Like the night had never happened. I checked my camera roll. Nothing new. I sat on my bed, staring at the spot where I had been sleeping in those photos. I tried to remember if I had heard anything the night before. A sound. A movement. Anything. Nothing came to mind. That was the worst part. Over the next few days, I barely slept. Every noise woke me up. Every creak made my heart race. I started locking my bedroom door, then realized how useless that felt. I checked my windows, my locks, my phone, everything over and over. Sometimes when I wake up, I lie completely still, afraid to move. Afraid that if I shift even slightly, someone might already be watching. I deleted her number, locked her everywhere, reported nothing because I did not know what to say without sounding insane. But sometimes late at night, I think about those photos. How calm I looked. How unaware. And I wonder how many nights I have slept through without knowing. I always thought silence was a choice. Like you decide not to talk, you bite your tongue, you let someone else fill the space. I never considered the idea that silence could sneak up on you and settle in without asking. That night, it did not arrive loudly. It slid in quietly and made itself comfortable before I noticed anything was wrong. The night started like most of my bad ideas do, with me pacing my room and convincing myself that going out would be better than sitting alone with my thoughts. I had been staring at my phone, opening and closing apps without really reading anything when he messaged. Nothing special, just a simple check-in. I said yes without thinking too hard, grabbed my jacket, and told myself it would be quick and harmless. We met at a small local museum that stayed open late once a week, not the fancy kind, just a weird collection of old objects, half-broken displays, and handwritten labels. It was quiet, echoey, the kind of place where you feel like you should whisper even if nobody tells you to. I liked that. It felt low pressure. He waved when he saw me and smiled like he was genuinely happy I showed up. We walked through the first room together, looking at displays, reading plaques. I remember thinking it was nice how calm it felt. No awkward jokes. No forced conversation. Just walking side by side. At some point, he started talking more. Not in an overwhelming way. Just narrating things. Commenting on objects. Telling small stories about himself. I nodded along, smiled when it felt right. I remember thinking I was being a good listener. We moved from room to room, the floors creaking softly under our steps. I noticed how my voice had not come up yet, but that did not strike me as odd. Some people take longer to warm up. I always do. We stopped in front of a glass case filled with old journals. Faded covers. Cracked spines. He leaned closer to read one of the entries aloud, then laughed quietly. I smiled. That was when the thought flickered through my head for the first time. I realized I could not remember the sound of my own voice from that night. It was such a small thought that it almost slipped away. I told myself I had probably spoken earlier and just did not remember it exactly when. Memory does that sometimes. We sat down on a bench in one of the larger rooms. The lights overhead hummed softly. I shifted my weight and crossed my legs, feeling strangely stiff. He kept talking, telling a story about his childhood, about a place he used to live near the water. I listened, nodding at the right moments. He paused and looked at me, smiling. He told me he loved how quiet I was tonight. The words landed heavy in my chest. I froze. My brain scrambled backward, searching for proof that I had spoken. Any proof. A word. A laugh. A sound. Nothing surfaced. The night replayed in my head like a muted video. I tried to respond. Nothing came out. I felt my throat tighten. I tried again, opening my mouth slightly, pushing air forward. Still nothing. Panic flared, sharp and sudden. I swallowed hard, forcing my throat to relax. I told myself it was nerves. Sometimes your voice catches. Sometimes you need a second. He did not seem concerned. If anything, he looked pleased. He said it was refreshing. He said most people talk too much when they are nervous. I nodded automatically, my movements stiff. I focused on my breathing, in through my nose, out through my mouth. I tried to hum softly, just to test it. There was no sound. My heart started racing. My hands felt cold. I pressed my fingers against my throat, feeling the vibration of my pulse. Everything felt normal physically. Nothing hurt. Nothing felt blocked. We stood up and continued walking. My legs felt heavy, like I was moving through water. Every step felt delayed. I tried to cough. Nothing. I tried to clear my throat. Nothing. He kept talking, completely unaware, pointing things out, asking questions that did not require spoken answers. Questions I could nod or shake my head to. He filled in the gaps easily, like he had expected this. I started to feel unreal, like I was shrinking slightly, fading at the edges. Sounds around me felt distant. The hum of the lights. The echo of footsteps. My own breathing sounded too loud in my ears. We reached a room with mirrors along one wall. Old, warped mirrors that bent reflections strangely. I glanced at myself without meaning to. My mouth was closed, relaxed. Too relaxed. I stopped walking and stared at my reflection. I opened my mouth wide and tried to scream. Nothing happened. My chest tightened painfully. Tears sprang to my eyes. I could feel my face contorting, the muscles moving, but there was no sound to go with it. He noticed then that I had stopped. He turned back, concern flickering briefly across his face before smoothing out. He asked if I was okay. I nodded quickly, too quickly. My movements felt exaggerated. He stepped closer, lowering his voice, telling me I did not need to push myself. He said sometimes being quiet was better. He said he liked it when things stayed still. That word made my stomach drop. Still. I reached out and grabbed his sleeve harder than I meant to. My fingers dove into the fabric. He looked down at my hand, then back at my face, eyebrows raised slightly. I shook my head, trying to communicate without words. My mouth moved, forming shapes, begging for sound. He gently pried my fingers away and smiled reassuringly. He told me to relax. He said there was no rush. No rush to what, my brain screamed. We left the museum a few minutes later. The night air hit my face, cold and sharp. I gulped it down, hoping the change would help. Hoping my voice would come back now that we were outside. Nothing changed. Cars passed. People talked nearby. Laughter drifted from somewhere down the street. The world was loud, and I was not part of it. We walked toward a small park across the street. Streetlights cast long shadows on the ground. My shadow moved normally, arms swinging, head turning. Everything looked right, except for the part that mattered. I stopped again, heart pounding, and tried one last time. I forced all the air out of my lungs and pushed as hard as I could. Still nothing. Fear wrapped around my chest, tight and suffocating. I realized then that I did not know how long it had been gone. I did not know if it would come back. I did not know if I had lost it gradually or all at once. He watched me struggle with a calm expression that made my skin crawl. He told me it was okay. He said he liked me like this. He said I seemed more present. Present. I shook my head violently, stepping back. My hands trembled. I felt trapped inside my own body, screaming silently. He took a step toward me, then stopped himself. He said he did not want to scare me. He said he just appreciated the quiet connection. He said sometimes words ruin things. I turned and walked away. I did not run. I did not want to draw attention. I walked fast, heart racing, eyes scanning for help. People passed me, busy with their own lives. Nobody noticed anything wrong. I tried to stop someone. I grabbed a stranger's arm lightly, opening my mouth to explain. No sound came out. The person pulled away annoyed and kept walking. Panic surged. My vision blurred with tears. My chest hurt from breathing too fast. I reached my car and fumbled with the keys, hands shaking. When I got inside, I locked the doors and leaned forward, forehead against the steering wheel. I tried to cry out. Silence. I sat there for a long time, shaking, testing my voice over and over, whispering, shouting, humming. Nothing worked. Eventually, exhaustion set in. My breathing slowed. My thoughts dulled. I realized something then that made everything worse. I did not miss my voice the way I thought I would. The fear was there, yes, the panic, the confusion. But underneath it was a strange calm, like the quiet was smoothing something over, like I did not have to fight to be heard anymore. That scared me more than the silence itself. I drove home carefully, hyper-aware of everything. When I got inside, I went straight to the bathroom and stared at my reflection. I opened my mouth and watched it move. My face looked normal. My eyes looked tired. I forced myself to say my name. Nothing. I slept badly that night, dreams thick and muffled. When I woke up, the first thing I did was try to speak. A sound came out. Hoarse. Broken. Barely there. I cried then, quietly, relieved and shaken. My voice came back slowly over the next few hours. Scratchy at first, then clearer. By the afternoon, it sounded mostly normal. But something feels off now. Sometimes when I am tired or overwhelmed, I realize I have gone hours without speaking. Not because I chose to, because it did not occur to me to try. And sometimes late at night, I catch myself enjoying the quiet a little too much. I used to think the worst feeling on a date was that awkward pause where neither of you knows what to say next. Turns out it is much worse when everyone else seems to know you better than you know yourself. That night did not hit me all at once. It crept in slowly, hiding behind politeness and familiarity until there was no clean way out. I met her at a small late-night food place near the edge of town. Nothing special. Plastic booths, buzzing lights, a menu that had not changed in years. It was the kind of place people went after they had already decided not to care how the night turned out. We talked easily. Not deep, not shallow. Just enough to keep the time moving. I remember feeling relieved that it was going smoothly, like I had finally gotten the normal one after a string of forgettable disasters. She laughed at the right times, listened when I talked, asked questions that showed she was paying attention. There was nothing about her that set off alarms. If anything, she felt familiar, like someone I had known in passing for a long time, but never really talked to before. When she suggested we go back to her place, it did not feel rushed. It felt casual, like the obvious next step. I hesitated for a second, just out of habit, but then I agreed. I told myself to stop overthinking everything. Her place was only a few blocks away. We walked instead of driving, the night quiet except for distant traffic and someone playing music with their windows down. The building came into view slowly, an old apartment complex with balconies stacked unevenly, paint peeling in places. The lights at most of the windows were on, even though it was late. As we got closer, I noticed a couple sitting on the front steps. older, bundled up despite the warm night, sharing a cigarette. They looked up as we approached. The man smiled at me. He said my name. I froze for half a second, convinced I had misheard. Names get mixed up all the time. Maybe he thought I was someone else. I nodded politely and kept walking, but my stomach tightened. The woman leaned forward and thanked me for coming back again. Again. My heart skipped so hard it felt like it knocked the air out of me. I slowed, glancing at her, then at my date. She did not react at all. Did not look surprised. Did not correct them. She just kept walking like this was normal. I forced myself to move, my legs stiff. Maybe they had confused me with someone else who looked like me. Maybe I had that kind of face. People say that sometimes. Inside the building, the air smelled like old carpet and cleaning chemicals. The hallway lights flickered slightly, casting everything in a yellow haze. As we walked toward the stairs, a door opened on the first floor. A guy about my age stepped out, holding a trash bag. He looked straight at me and smiled. He greeted me by name, too. He said something about it being good to see me again. He said it like it was routine, like we had run into each other 100 times before. My mouth went dry. My brain scrambled for a response that would not make me sound insane. I gave a weak smile and kept moving. My date walked ahead of me, keys already in hand, completely relaxed. She did not slow down, did not look back to check on me. It felt like she knew exactly how this was going to go. As we climbed the stairs, I asked how her neighbors knew me. I tried to keep my tone light, like I was joking. She shrugged and said people noticed patterns. She said the building had a good memory. That answer made no sense, and she did not seem interested in explaining it further. On the second floor, an older woman watering plants on her balcony looked over and waved at me. She said my name and smiled warmly. She told me it was nice of me to keep coming back. My hands started shaking. I shoved them into my pockets, hoping she would not notice. My heart was racing so hard I could hear it in my ears. I asked my date if she was messing with me, if this was some kind of prank. She stopped at her door then and turned to look at me, genuinely confused. She asked why it would be a prank. She said nobody was laughing. The door opened into a small apartment, clean but lived in. Couch, coffee table, a couple of lamps casting soft light. Nothing strange at first glance. It looked like a place someone actually lived in, not staged, not temporary. I stepped inside slowly, my body tense. She set her keys down and kicked off her shoes. I stayed near the door, not ready to commit to being fully inside yet. On the wall across from me were photos. Lots of them. Group shots, casual selfies, moments frozen in time. My eyes scanned them without really meaning to. Then I saw myself. Not once, not twice. Dozens of times. Different clothes, different lighting, different angles, but always me, always standing beside her, arm around her shoulder, smiling like I belonged there. My stomach dropped. I stepped closer to the wall, my breath shallow. The photos looked real. Not edited, not staged, candid. There were timestamps in the corners of some of them. Dates spread out over months, maybe longer. I asked her what the hell that was. She walked over and looked at the wall like she was seeing it for the first time. She frowned slightly and said she thought she had taken some of those down. That made it worse. I pointed to one photo in particular. In it, I was sitting on her couch, wearing a shirt I recognized but could not remember owning. My arm was wrapped around her. We both looked relaxed. Happy, even. I asked when that was taken. She said sometime last spring. She said it casually, like she was talking about the weather. I told her I had never been there before, never met her before tonight. My voice cracked despite my effort to stay calm. She tilted her head slightly, studying my face. She said sometimes people forget things that matter less to them. She said it did not mean they never happened. My chest tightened. I felt dizzy, like the room was tilting. I backed away from the wall, bumping into the table behind me. A stack of mail slid slightly. I glanced down without thinking. There were envelopes with my name on them. My full name. Addressed to that apartment. Dated months ago. I felt sick. I told her I was leaving. I moved toward the door, my heart pounding. She did not try to stop me. She did not block my way. She just watched, calm and patient. She told me to be careful on the stairs. She said I always rushed when I left like this. That word again. Always. I yanked the door open and stepped into the hallway. The lights flickered as if on cue. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely grab the railing. As I went down the stairs, people looked out of their doors. Not all of them, just enough. Each one smiled. Each one nodded. Some waved. All of them seemed to recognize me. One of them thanked me for coming back again. Another told me to drive safe like he had done it before. I did not look back. I ran down the last flight of stairs and burst out the front door into the night air. It felt too cold, too sharp. I stood there for a second, gasping, trying to get my bearings. The couple on the steps were still there. They looked up at me with that same warm familiarity. The man told me it was nice to see me again so soon. I did not respond. I walked past them and did not stop walking until I reached my car. My hands shook as I unlocked it. I got inside and locked the doors immediately, heart racing. As I pulled away from the curb, I glanced in the mirror. The building looked normal, quiet, just another old apartment complex. But I swear for a split second, I saw myself standing in one of the windows, watching the car leave, expression calm, familiar. I drove home in silence. When I got there, I checked my phone obsessively. Photos, messages, location history. Anything that could explain it. There was nothing. No photos, no messages, no record of being there before. But when I went to sleep that night, I dreamed of that apartment, of sitting on that couch, of leaving in a hurry, over and over. The worst part is not that I do not remember being there before. It is that part of me wonders if I will go back. I keep thinking about the chairs first. Not him. Not what he said. The chairs. Because once I noticed them, I could not stop seeing them, and they felt heavier than anything else in the room, like they had weight even when nobody was sitting in them. I almost canceled that date because I was tired in a way sleep does not fix. Not sleepy, just worn down, like too many small things had piled up in my head all week. But I went anyway because staying home felt worse. It always feels worse right before something bad happens, like your body knows but does not explain itself. We met at a small wine bar tucked behind a row of closed shops. The kind of place that pretends to be intimate but mostly just feels quiet and awkward. Dim lights, mismatched chairs, small round tables placed too close together. It was nearly empty when I walked in, which I liked at first. Less noise. Less pressure. He was already there, sitting at a table meant for 4. That should have felt weird right away, but it did not. I assumed he had just grabbed whatever table was free. There were 3 empty chairs around him, pushed in neatly like they were waiting. He stood when he saw me, smiled, pulled one chair out for me. Polite, calm, normal, that word again. I sat down and noticed how the other chairs stayed perfectly aligned, evenly spaced. Nobody had bumped them. Nobody had moved them aside. It felt intentional, but I did not know why that bothered me yet. The beginning of the date was fine. Not amazing, not terrible, just fine. We talked about easy stuff. Work, random stories, small complaints. He listened closely, nodded at the right times, smiled when I smiled. Nothing felt forced. The server came over and asked if we wanted drinks. He ordered for himself and then glanced at me before ordering mine. I usually hate that, but I was too tired to care. I just wanted the night to pass. As time went on, I noticed he kept looking past me, not at me, past me, like something behind my shoulder kept pulling his attention. Every time I turned slightly to check, there was nothing there, just the wall and one of the empty chairs. I told myself he was just distracted. Then he leaned forward slightly and said I was prettier than the others. The words landed wrong immediately. Not because of the compliment part, but because of the comparison. My stomach tightened. I asked who the others were, expecting him to backtrack or laugh it off. Instead, he gestured around the table, to the empty chairs. Not vaguely, not jokingly. He pointed to them one by one, calm and casual, like they were occupied, and I was the one missing something. My heart started pounding. I laughed weakly, assuming he was being sarcastic. He did not smile. He just nodded like he had clarified something important. I followed his gesture with my eyes. The chairs looked the same as before. Empty, clean, pushed in. But now they felt wrong, like they were placeholders instead of furniture. I asked what he meant. He explained it slowly, patiently, like I was struggling to understand something obvious. He said he always met people at tables like this. He said it helped him compare. He said it was easier when everyone had a seat. My skin crawled. I looked around the bar. There were a few other people now, scattered at different tables, talking quietly. Nobody was paying attention to us. Nobody looked alarmed. I told myself to stay calm. Weird people exist. That does not mean danger. I tried to change the subject, asked about his job. He answered, but kept drifting back to comparisons. Little comments about differences, about what stood out, about what made someone last longer than others. Last longer stuck with me. I noticed then that the chairs were not identical. Similar, but not the same. One had a small scratch on the leg. Another had a slightly darker cushion. The one beside me had a faint stain near the edge, like something had been spilled and wiped away badly. I shifted in my seat, suddenly aware of how close the other chairs were. How easy it would be to imagine someone sitting there if he tried. He leaned back and looked around the table with satisfaction, like he was checking something off. He told me I was doing well so far. I asked what that meant. He said it meant I was present. He said some people faded faster than others. He said some people left before they were finished. I felt cold all over. I asked him how many others there had been. He did not answer with a number. He just looked at the chairs again. All of them. Like the answer was obvious if I knew how to look. I pushed my drink away, suddenly nauseous. The bar felt smaller now. The lights too dim. The air thick. I stood up, saying I needed to use the bathroom. I just needed space. I needed to get away from the table and those chairs. As I walked past the table, I swear one of the chairs shifted slightly. Not scraped, not moved fully, just enough that the angle changed. I froze. I looked back. The chairs were still, empty, unchanged. In the bathroom, I locked myself in a stall and sat on the closed lid, breathing hard. My hands were shaking. I told myself I was overreacting, that stress makes your brain invent things, that nothing had actually happened yet. I splashed water on my face and stared at myself in the mirror. My eyes looked too bright. My smile felt fake when I tried to practice it. When I went back out, he was still sitting there, exactly as I left him. The chairs were still arranged neatly, too neatly. He smiled when he saw me return, like he knew I would, like leaving had been part of the test. He said he was glad I came back. He said that usually meant something. I sat down again because I did not know how not to, because my legs felt weak, because the idea of turning my back on those chairs felt worse than facing them. He told me more then, not details, just patterns, how some people blended in too much, how some stood out in the wrong way, how some were memorable but exhausting. He said I had balance. I noticed that every time he talked about someone else, his eyes flicked briefly to a different chair. I asked what happened to the others. My voice shook despite my effort to keep it steady. He shrugged and said they eventually stopped being present. He said the chairs remembered them longer than he did. That sentence made my stomach drop. I pushed my chair back hard enough that it scraped loudly this time. The sound cut through the bar like a crack. A few people glanced over. I did not care. I told him I was leaving. He did not argue. He just nodded slowly, like he had expected it. He told me I was still prettier than the others even now. I grabbed my bag and walked away without looking back. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt. I half expected to feel a hand on my arm. I did not. Outside, the night air felt sharp and real. I walked fast, not stopping until I reached my car. My hands were shaking as I unlocked it. Before getting in, I looked back through the window of the bar. The table was empty. All 4 chairs were pushed in neatly. For a second, I thought I saw something on the seat I had been using, a faint impression, like someone had just stood up. Then a group walked in and blocked the view. I drove home in silence, checking my mirrors, my chest tight the whole way. When I got home, I locked the door and stood there for a long time, listening to my own breathing. Later that night, I tried to picture the bar clearly, the lights, the table, the chairs. I could picture my chair easily. The others were harder. Their shapes blurred together. Their details slipped away, like they had never been fully real to begin with. Sometimes now, when I sit at a table with extra chairs, I feel uncomfortable for no clear reason. I catch myself counting them, checking their positions. I do not like sitting where someone else could have been compared. I do not like the idea of being the only one left at the table. I noticed it the first time because my eyes were dry. That is such a stupid detail, but it matters. I had been staring at her for a little too long, trying not to be obvious, and my eyes started to burn the way they do when you forget to blink. I finally blinked on instinct, just a normal reflex, and when my eyes opened again, the space in front of me was empty. Not empty like she had walked away. Empty like she had never been there. We were sitting on a concrete ledge near the river walk, lights reflecting off the water, people passing by behind us. 1 second she was there, legs swinging, shoes tapping the wall. Next second, nothing. Just the ledge and the cold air. My heart jumped, and I actually laughed at first because my brain tried to save me. It told me she had leaned forward or stood up quickly. It told me I had blinked longer than I thought. I looked to my left, to my right, behind me. Then I blinked again. She was back. Same spot, same position. Like nothing had happened. She was mid-movement, foot swinging, had tilted slightly as if she had been talking the entire time. No sign that she noticed anything wrong. My laugh died in my throat. I did not say anything. I told myself I was tired. I had worked late. My eyes were strained. Weird visual stuff happens when you are exhausted. I focused on breathing and kept my eyes on her face. We had met earlier that night at an outdoor movie screening in a closed parking lot. One of those cheap summer events where people bring folding chairs and pretend the vibe is intentional. She had smiled at me in line, said something casual, and we ended up sitting together without really deciding to. It felt easy. Normal. The kind of thing that happens when you do not think too hard. Until my eyes betrayed me. A few minutes passed. Nothing strange. I relaxed a little, then my eyes burned again. I blinked. She was gone. This time it lasted longer. My stomach dropped. Panic surged through me, fast and hot. I stood up, scanning the area, my heart pounding. People were walking by like nothing was wrong. Laughing, checking their phones. No sign of her anywhere. I rubbed my eyes hard and blinked again. She was sitting at my feet now, crouched down, tying her shoe. I froze. She looked up at me and smiled, like she had always been there, like it was weird that I was standing. I sat back down slowly, trying to keep my breathing steady. My hands were shaking. I shoved them into my pockets so she would not see. I started paying attention to my blinking after that, counting the seconds between them, forcing my eyes to stay open longer than was comfortable. The world felt too sharp, too bright, but I did not care. I just wanted to keep her in place. It did not work. Every blink changed something. Sometimes she shifted positions. Sometimes she moved closer. Sometimes she was farther away. Once, when I blinked, she was standing across the path near the water, staring straight at me like she had been waiting. Another blink put her right back beside me. I did not know how to react without sounding insane. I did not know how to ask someone if they were disappearing without actually accusing them of something impossible. I started testing it quietly. Short blinks, long blinks, blinking one eye at a time, squeezing my eyes shut for half a second and forcing them open again. Each time, the result changed. She never reacted. That was the worst part. She never seemed confused, never surprised, never annoyed. Her behavior stayed smooth and continuous, like there were no gaps at all, like the version of her I saw after the blink had always been the current one. I started to feel like I was lagging behind reality, like my eyes were refreshing and she was loading in differently each time. We started walking along the river. I kept my eyes on her feet to make sure she stayed real. The ground felt uneven. My head throbbed from strain. My eyes watered, begging for relief. I blinked anyway. She was walking behind me now. I spun around so fast I almost lost my balance. She was a few steps back, hands in her pockets, watching me with that same calm expression, like she had always been there. I asked if she was messing with me. The words came out sharp, shaky. She looked confused for just a second, then shrugged it off in a way that did not reassure me at all. She said something about me being jumpy, about it getting late, about lights playing tricks. Lights do not move people around. We stopped near a closed snack stand, metal shutters down. The area was quieter here. Darker. Fewer people. I became painfully aware of how often I blink without thinking. How impossible it is to stop completely. My eyes burned so badly it felt like sand was scraping under my lids. Tears streamed down my face, blurring everything. I blinked. She was inches from my face. I gasped and stumbled back, slamming into the shutter behind me. My heart felt like it was going to explode. She did not move closer. She just stood there, looking at me like I had finally caught up. I forced my eyes open wider, even though it hurt. My vision swam. Black spots danced at the edges. I told her I needed to go, that I was not feeling well. My voice sounded wrong, like it belonged to someone else. She nodded slowly, not disappointed, not surprised, like this was the natural next step. As we walked toward the street, I realized something that made my blood run cold. She only moved when I blinked. Between blinks, she stayed perfectly still, not frozen like a statue, but held, like time paused around her. The world kept moving. Cars passed. People walked by. Leaves rustled, but she stayed locked in place until my eyes closed again. Every blink let her reposition. Closer. Better. I stopped blinking as much as I could. My eyes screamed. My vision blurred so badly I could barely see her clearly anymore. But I kept them open. Forced them open. I did not care if it hurt. We reached a crosswalk. Traffic lights reflected in her eyes. I realized with a sinking feeling that if I blinked at the wrong moment, she could end up anywhere. Right in front of me. Right behind me. Somewhere I could not see. The light changed. Cars stopped. People crossed. My eyes burned so bad I let out a sound I did not recognize as my own. Tears poured down my face. I could not see straight. I blinked. She was gone. Completely gone. No version nearby. No movement. Just empty space. Relief hit first, then terror. Because this time, she did not come back when I blinked again. I stood there in the crosswalk, heart racing, spinning in circles. People brushed past me annoyed. Nobody else seemed to notice she was missing. I felt exposed. Watched. I walked home fast, eyes wide, barely blinking, terrified she would appear somewhere I could not predict. Every reflection made me flinch. Every shadow felt wrong. When I got inside my place, I locked the door and leaned against it, chest heaving. My eyes felt raw, swollen, burning. I forced myself to blink. Nothing happened. Again. Nothing. I did not sleep that night. I lay on my bed staring at the ceiling, eyes dry and aching, afraid that if I let them close for too long, she would be there when I opened them. Morning came. Light crept in through the window. My eyes finally closed without me deciding to. When I opened them again, my room was empty. Normal. But now, every time I blink, there is a split second of panic. A moment where I wait to see if the world rearranged itself again. I blink less now, a lot less. People ask why my eyes are always red, why I stare so much. I do not tell them that blinking feels like rolling dice. I do not tell them that I am scared one day she will stop moving back. I knew something was wrong before the glass even touched my lips. That sounds dramatic, but it is true. There is a moment right before things go bad where your body reacts faster than your brain. And that night, my body was already leaning away while my mind was still trying to be polite. I almost did not go out. I had taken my medication earlier than usual because the day felt heavy in a way I could not explain. The kind of heaviness that makes your thoughts feel loud and crowded. The meds usually dull that. They make everything softer around the edges. They help me forget things my brain refuses to let go of on its own. I told myself I would just stay in, but then he messaged casual and easy, and I said yes like muscle memory. We met at a bar that used to be a pharmacy a long time ago. They kept the old tile floor and shelves, turned them into decoration. It was dim, quiet, the kind of place where conversations stayed low and nobody bothered you. I liked that. It felt controlled. He was already there when I arrived, leaning against the bar, talking to the bartender like they knew each other. He smiled when he saw me, waved me over, and before I could even sit down, he ordered a drink for me. I noticed it, but I did not say anything. Some people do that to be confident. It is annoying, but not automatically scary. I watched the bartender mix it, poured it, slide it across the counter. The glass stopped right in front of me. The smell hit first. My stomach dropped instantly. There is a specific bitterness to my medication. Not like alcohol bitter. Not like coffee. Chemical. dry. It coats the back of your tongue and lingers. I had tasted it enough times when the pill dissolved too fast or got stuck. I knew it. I stared at the drink, heart pounding, trying to convince myself I was imagining it. Bars have all kinds of smells. Citrus, alcohol, herbs. I picked up the glass slowly, my fingers trembling just a little. I took a small sip. It tasted exactly like the medication I take to forget. Not similar. Not close. Exact. My mouth went numb. My chest tightened so hard it hurt. I swallowed quickly, fighting the urge to spit it out right there. My tongue felt coated. The aftertaste clung to my throat. I set the glass down carefully, like it might break if I moved too fast. He watched my face closely, eyes scanning for a reaction. When I did not say anything, he smiled, satisfied. He said something about knowing what people liked, about paying attention. I barely heard him. My ears were ringing. My brain was already racing through possibilities, none of them good. I asked what he ordered. He told me the name of some cocktail I had never heard of, something made up sounding, something that meant nothing. I looked at the bartender, who was already moving away, busy with other orders. Nobody else in the bar seemed to notice anything strange. Laughter drifted from a table behind us. Glasses clinked. Music hummed low. I told myself to breathe. Maybe it was coincidence. Maybe the drink had an ingredient that tasted similar. Maybe my brain was connecting dots that were not there because I was already tired. But my body did not buy that. I pushed the drink slightly away from me and reached for my phone, pretending to check a message. My hands were shaking enough that I had to steady them against the bar. He asked if I did not like it. His tone was light, almost playful. I told him it tasted weird. He nodded like he expected that. He said it usually did at first. He said you get used to it after a few sips. That word hit me harder than it should have. Usually. I told him I was not drinking it. I said I would order something else. He frowned, just a little. Not angry. Disappointed. Like I had interrupted a process. He leaned closer and said something about how it would help me relax. How it would make things quieter. How it would help me forget the stuff that kept me up at night. My blood ran cold. I had never told him about my medication. Never mentioned forgetting. Never hinted at it. I am careful about that. Always have been. I asked how he knew about that. He smiled and said everyone has something they want to forget. He said he just happened to know the flavor of mine. I stood up so fast my stool scraped loudly against the floor. A couple people glanced over. I did not care. I told him I was leaving. He did not try to stop me. He just watched, calm, like he knew exactly how this part went. As I walked toward the door, my head started to feel light. Not dizzy exactly. Floaty. My thoughts felt slower, like they were sinking into water. Panic flared. I had only taken one sip. That should not have been enough for anything to happen. My meds do not work like that. They do not hit instantly. They do not feel like this. I pushed through the door into the cool night air and leaned against the brick wall outside, breathing hard. My heart was racing, but my thoughts felt muffled, like someone had turned the volume down without asking. I checked my phone to ground myself. The screen felt too bright. My reflection stared back at me, eyes wide, face pale. I tried to think of something sharp, something specific. My address, my full name, the date. They came to me slowly, like they had to travel a long way. I realized then that whatever was in that drink was not exactly my medication. It was close enough to mimic it. Close enough to trigger the same pathways. Close enough to open the same doors. I felt sick. I walked away from the bar, not trusting myself to stay still. The street felt unreal, like a set. Lights too bright. Sounds too distant. My memories felt slippery, like they were stacked on top of each other without order. As I walked, things started to blur. Not visually, but mentally. Small details slipped away. What time it was. What song had been playing inside. The bartender's face. I tried to hold on to them and felt them slide out of reach. Fear punched through the haze. This was what the medication did when it worked too well, when it took more than it was supposed to. It softened memories until they lost their edges, until some of them faded completely. But I had not taken it. Not like that. I ducked into a convenience store and leaned on a shelf, pretending to browse while I fought to keep my thoughts together. I focused on labels, colors, numbers, anything solid. My phone buzzed. A message from him. He said not to worry. He said it would wear off. He said it always did. Always. I deleted the message immediately, but the words stuck. I stayed in the store for almost an hour, sipping water from a bottle I paid for with shaking hands. Slowly, the fog lifted just enough for me to think straight again, enough to remember why I was scared. When I finally went home, I locked the door and sat on the floor with my back against it, breathing until my chest stopped hurting. I lined up my medication on the counter and stared at it for a long time. The pills looked harmless, small, familiar. That night, I did not take them. I was afraid of what else they might connect to now. Over the next few days, I noticed gaps, small ones, things I knew had happened but could not picture clearly. The bar itself, his voice, the exact moment I took the sip. It felt like someone had taken an eraser and gently rubbed over parts of my memory. That scared me more than if everything had stayed sharp. I blocked him, deleted the chat, reported the bar anonymously, though I did not know what to say. There was no proof, just a feeling and a taste. Sometimes when I take my medication now and hesitate, I hold it on my tongue for a second too long, noticing the bitterness, comparing it to that drink. I hate that the flavor makes me think of him. I hate that forgetting no longer feels safe. I did not think about fate until my phone told me it had already decided something for me. That is the part that still messes with my head. Not the date itself, not even her question, but the fact that whatever was coming had been scheduled long before I knew to be afraid of it. The night started with me trying to kill time. I had been stuck in my room all evening, scrolling until my thumb hurt, watching nothing stick. When she suggested meeting up, it felt like an interruption I needed. Not excitement, just motion. I wanted the night to move forward instead of sitting there watching it rot. We met at a rooftop arcade downtown. Not flashy, just old machines and plastic chairs and a view of the city that looked better from far away. The air smelled like dust and warm electronics. It was loud enough that silence could not sneak up on you, which I liked. She showed up right on time. Not early. Not late. Exactly when she said she would. She smiled like she knew me already, but not in a forced way. More like recognition. That should have felt flattering. Instead, it felt like being mistaken for someone else. We played a few games. Badly. Laughed when things went wrong. For a while, it felt normal enough that I stopped paying attention to the little alarms in my head. She asked questions that were easy to answer. Favorites. Habits. Dumb opinions. Nothing personal. Nothing deep. Every now and then she would glance at her phone, then back at me, like she was checking the time against something only she could see. I noticed it but did not say anything. Everyone checks their phone. I do too. We sat down near the edge of the roof, the city lights blinking below us. That was when she asked about fate. Not out of nowhere, but close enough that it stood out. She asked if I believed things were already decided, if people were just walking along paths they could not see. I shrugged, not wanting to sound dramatic. I said something vague about coincidence and choice. She listened closely, nodding like my answer mattered more than it should have. Right as I finished, my phone buzzed. The sound felt too loud, too sharp. I almost ignored it, but habit kicked in. I pulled it out of my pocket and glanced at the screen. It was a calendar reminder. I did not recognize it at first. I do not use reminders much. I stared at the title, confused, waiting for my brain to catch up. Meet her. Die? My stomach dropped so hard it felt like the floor tilted. The reminder was set for that exact minute. Not earlier. Not later, right then, like it had been waiting. My hands went cold. I felt dizzy, like I had stood up too fast. I checked the date on the reminder. It was created months ago. Long before I had met her. Long before I even knew her name. I scrolled back through my calendar frantically. The reminder sat there alone. No notes. No location. Just that title and a timestamp. I felt sick. I looked up at her. She was watching my face carefully, like she could see the panic spreading. She did not look surprised. If anything, she looked relieved, like something had finally lined up. I asked if she had done something to my phone. The words felt clumsy and weak coming out. She shook her head slowly. She said she would never need to do that. That answer made no sense, and somehow that made it worse. I laughed, a short broken sound, and told myself it had to be a joke. Maybe I had made the reminder as a prank and forgot. Maybe someone else had access to my phone. Maybe this was all some weird coincidence stacked on top of itself. But deep down, I knew I would remember setting something like that. I tried to swipe the reminder away. My phone lagged, froze for a second, then cleared the notification. When I checked the calendar again, it was gone, like it had never existed. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. She asked if everything was okay. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. She leaned in slightly, close enough that I could smell her shampoo. Something floral. Something familiar in a way I could not place. I told her about the reminder. Not every word, just enough. I watched her face closely for any reaction. Fear, confusion, anything. She smiled softly and said that timing was funny like that. She said sometimes reminders only show up when they are relevant. That did not help. It made my chest tighten. I stood up suddenly, needing space. The night air felt thin, like there was not enough of it. The city below looked fake, like a screensaver. I checked my phone again. No reminder. No trace. My calendar was empty except for normal stuff. Work. Random plans. Nothing ominous. I asked her how she knew to ask about fate right then. She said it was something she always asked. She said it helped her understand people better. I wanted to leave. Every instinct in me screamed to leave. But my legs felt heavy, like they were stuck to the floor. I forced myself to sit back down, not wanting to draw attention. We talked more, but I barely heard her. My mind kept looping back to that title. Meet her, die. Not die someday. Not maybe. Just die. Clean, certain. I checked my phone again, scrolling through old reminders, old notes, anything that could explain it. Nothing. I started thinking about the months before, about gaps in my memory, about days that felt blurred together. I wondered if there were moments where I had felt watched and brushed it off. She asked if I believed in second chances. That question hit differently now. I asked what she meant. She said some people get more than one ending. Some people notice, some do not. My skin crawled. I asked her if she thought this was funny. She looked genuinely confused by that. She said she did not think of it as funny or not. She said it was just how things worked. I told her I needed to go. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. She did not stop me. She did not argue. She just nodded like she had expected that too. As I walked toward the stairs, my phone buzzed again. I froze. Slowly, I pulled it out. Another reminder. Same title. Meet her. Die. This one was set for 10 minutes later. I felt like I could not breathe. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped the phone. I looked back at her. She was still sitting there watching me, expression unreadable. I ran. I did not care how it looked. I pushed past people, down the stairs, out into the street. The cold air hit me like a slap. I sprinted until my lungs burned, until my legs ached, until I ducked into a convenience store and pretended to browse just to stop moving. I checked my phone again. The reminder was gone. No new ones appeared. I waited there for almost an hour, heart slowly calming, brain replaying everything. When I finally stepped back outside, the night felt normal again. Too normal. I went home and locked my door. I turned my phone off completely and left it on my desk, face down. I did not turn it back on until morning. When I did, there were no reminders, no notifications, nothing unusual. But when I checked my calendar settings, I noticed something I swear had not been there before. A shared calendar. Unnamed. No events listed. I disconnected it immediately. I had not seen her again. She did not message, did not reach out. It felt like she had only needed that one moment. Sometimes, though, my phone buzzes and my heart jumps before I even look. Sometimes I think about how precise that timing was, how calm she stayed, how the reminder only existed long enough to be seen. I do not know if fate is real, but I know something had me on a schedule that night. And I know I did not get to see what the next reminder would have said. The scary part is not that I forgot things. It is that forgetting felt polite. It felt like the normal thing to do in the moment, like letting someone else finish a story because you do not want to interrupt. I did not feel attacked. I felt corrected, and somehow that was worse. I almost did not go out that night because I was in a weird mood where everything from my past felt louder than usual. I had spent the afternoon cleaning my room and found an old box shoved in the back of my closet. Inside were photos, notes, little random stuff from when I was younger. Nothing special, but it put me in that reflective headspace where memories feel closer to the surface. When he asked me out, it felt like a distraction I could use. We met at a small dessert place that also served dinner. Not fancy, just cozy, with booths and warm lights and too many things on the menu. The kind of place families go to celebrate nothing in particular. He was already there when I arrived, sitting in a booth near the window. He stood up when he saw me, smiling like he had been waiting longer than he expected. The beginning felt normal. Easy conversation. Small jokes. Nothing heavy. I felt relaxed enough to start sharing random stories without thinking too hard about them. That is how it started. Just me filling space. I mentioned the first place I remember living as a kid, a small house near a park. I told him about the big tree out front and how I used to sit on the steps and watch other kids play because I was scared to join in. He tilted his head slightly and said that was not how it was. I laughed, thinking he was teasing. Then he explained that the tree had been in the backyard, not the front, that the steps I was talking about were part of a different house later on. He said it gently, confidently, like he was helping me remember better. I hesitated. My memory felt solid. I could picture it clearly, but his certainty made me second-guess myself. I shrugged it off, telling myself memories shift over time. No big deal. Then it happened again. I brought up my old school, the hallway that always smelled like cleaning supplies, the classroom with the broken clock that never got fixed. He corrected me again. Said the clock had been replaced early on. Said the smell came from a nearby lab, not the hallway itself. Each time, he was calm. Not smug, not mocking, just sure. I started laughing less. A strange pressure built in my chest. I felt like I was being tested on something I did not know I needed to study for. Food arrived, and we ate while talking. I noticed he barely touched his plate, more focused on listening. Or maybe monitoring is a better word. Every story I told about growing up, he adjusted slightly. Changing locations, changing timing, changing details I had always assumed were fixed. I mentioned my childhood room, the posters on the wall, the way the light came in through the window in the afternoon. He corrected the direction the window faced. He said the light came in during the morning instead. I paused with my fork halfway to my mouth. I could see it in my head, the warm orange glow, the dust in the air, the way it felt. Or at least I thought I could. I asked how he knew all this. He said people mix things up all the time. He said it was normal to borrow pieces from different years and glue them together. He said he had always been good at keeping things straight. That answer sat wrong with me, but I could not explain why. I tried changing the subject to something recent. Movies, music, stuff that could not be messed with as easily. He stayed normal, relaxed, like nothing strange was happening. But the moment I drifted back into childhood stories, he corrected me again. I started feeling embarrassed, like I was bad at remembering my own life, like I was telling stories wrong. I second-guessed myself out loud. I asked if I was mixing things up. He nodded sympathetically, said it happened more than people realized. Dessert came. Something chocolate and heavy. I barely tasted it. My head felt foggy, like I had been thinking too hard for too long. I mentioned my birthday parties as a kid, the one where it rained, the one where nobody showed up except my cousin. He frowned slightly and told me I was blending two different years together. He said the rain party was the one where my neighbor came. He said the cousin party was sunny. My heart started pounding. That memory was emotional. It mattered. It was tied to how I saw myself growing up. Hearing him rearrange it so easily made me feel off balance, like someone nudging furniture around in a dark room. I tried to push back. I told him I was pretty sure about that one. He smiled softly and said that was usually the case. He said confidence did not always mean accuracy. Something in me cracked a little at that. I started mentally checking my memories, like files in a messy folder. Some felt clear. Others suddenly felt thin, like paper held up to the light. I asked him if he thought I remembered anything correctly. He said, of course. He said, just not everything. That should have been reassuring. It was not. He leaned forward slightly and started listing details about my childhood I had not brought up. My old neighbors. The layout of a grocery store I used to go to. The color of my first backpack. He said them casually, like facts anyone could know. Some of them were right. Some of them felt right. That was worse. I realized then that I was no longer sure which memories came from me and which ones I had just accepted because they sounded believable. My head felt light, like I had stood up too fast. I looked around the restaurant, grounding myself in the present, the clink of dishes, the low music, a family laughing nearby. It all felt distant, like I was watching it through glass. I asked him why he cared so much about being my past right. He said it mattered to him. He said knowing where someone came from helped you understand where they were going. He said memory was flexible. He said most people did not notice when it bent. I excused myself to the bathroom just to breathe. I stared at our reflection in the mirror for a long time. My face looked normal. Tired, maybe, but normal. I tried to think of one memory that felt undeniable. Something small. Something sensory. I thought of the smell of my grandmother's kitchen, the sound of an old fan clicking at night, the feel of carpet under my knees when I played on the floor. Even those felt shaky. When I went back to the table, he was waiting patiently, like he knew I would return. He asked if I was okay. I nodded, not trusting my voice. The rest of the date passed in a blur. I let him talk more. I stopped offering pieces of myself. I felt hollow, like I had put my memories away for safekeeping and forgot where. When we finally stood up to leave, he smiled and said he was glad we cleared some things up. That phrase echoed in my head all the way home. In my room later, I pulled out that old box again. Photos. Notes. Proof. I spread everything out on my bed like evidence. I stared at it for hours, trying to match it with what I remembered. Some things lined up. Some did not. The worst part was realizing I could not tell which ones he had changed and which ones I had always been wrong about. Now when I think about my childhood, there is a lag, like my brain pauses before showing me anything, checking if it is allowed to be there. Sometimes I catch myself adjusting a memory before it fully forms, smoothing it out, making it more reasonable. I have not seen him again. He did not message, did not follow up. It felt like he had already gotten what he wanted. I still think about dessert sometimes, the way it tasted too sweet, the way my fork shook slightly in my hand, the way my past started to feel negotiable. The first thing that hooked me was how easy it felt. That is always how it starts, right? Not fireworks, not nerves, just that smooth feeling like you already know where things are going. I remember thinking it was nice not to struggle for words for once. I remember feeling almost relieved, like my brain could finally rest. We met at a public library that stayed open late during the summer. Not the main floor with kids and printers, but the quiet upper level with long tables and soft lamps. It was her idea. She said it was calm and people left you alone. I liked that. I figured it would just be talking, maybe walking around it after. Nothing intense. When I got there, she was already seated at one of the tables, backpack at her feet, hands folded neatly. She looked up at the exact moment I reached the top of the stairs. That should have felt flattering. Instead, it felt timed. We started talking right away. School stuff, work stuff, random complaints. Nothing deep. Nothing weird. Every time I paused mid-sentence to think a word, she finished it for me. Not interrupting, just sliding the word in smoothly like she was helping. At first, it was kind of funny. I laughed it off in my head and told myself she was just good at reading people. Some people are. When it happened again, I noticed it more. When it happened a third time, I felt that tiny click in my stomach, like something shifting out of place. She did not just finish my sentences. She finished them perfectly. Not the obvious words, but the exact ones I was about to use. Same phrasing, same tone, like she had read the thought straight out of my head. I tested it without meaning to at first. I started the sentence, paused longer than normal, pretending to think. She waited, watching me closely, then filled it in anyway, still perfect. I told myself it was coincidence, that my thoughts were predictable, that I talked the same way everyone else does. We walked between the shelves for a bit, whispering even though nobody was nearby. Every time I shifted direction, she matched it. Every time I stopped, she stopped. It felt like walking beside my reflection, just half a second delayed. We sat again, this time closer together. I noticed she breathed in sync with me. I changed my pace on purpose. She adjusted without realizing it. That was when I decided to test her for real. I started the sentence with no plan, just a few words to get it going, intending to veer it somewhere unexpected. Before I could even form the next thought, she finished it. Not just the sentence, the idea. She said exactly what I was about to think next. Not something I had planned to say out loud. Something that had not fully formed yet. Something that existed only as a vague shape in my head. My heart slammed against my ribs. My mouth went dry. I stared at her, trying to process what had just happened. She smiled like nothing was wrong, like she had just answered a normal question. I felt exposed in a way I did not have words for, like someone had gone through my stuff while I was gone and put it back slightly wrong. I laughed because that is what I always do when I do not know what else to do. I told myself I was imagining it, that my brain was filling in gaps after the fact. Memory is messy like that. But I could not shake the feeling. I tried again, this time even more carefully. I thought of something random, something personal, something I would never say on a first date. I opened my mouth to speak, intending to change it at the last second. She finished it anyway. My stomach dropped. The room felt suddenly too quiet. The soft hum of the lights overhead grew louder in my ears. She leaned forward slightly, eyes focused on mine, like she was listening for something deeper than sound. Her expression was calm, almost curious. Not excited, not apologetic. I asked her how she was doing that. The words felt thick leaving my mouth. She said she had always been good at patterns. She said people repeat themselves more than they think. She said thoughts leave traces before they turn into words. That explanation did not help. If anything, it made it worse. I stood up, needing space, pretending to stretch. She mirrored me a second later. I walked toward the stairs. She followed, still talking, finishing thoughts I tried to keep to myself. Outside, the night air felt unreal. The parking lot lights buzzed softly. I felt like I had just stepped out of a bubble where the rules were different. We walked side by side, and I focused hard on my breathing, on keeping my thoughts empty. Every time an idea popped up, I pushed it away. I pictured static, noise, blankness. She stayed quiet for a bit, like she noticed the change. Then she started finishing thoughts I did not realize I was having. Small ones at first, observations, feelings, then bigger ones, memories, things I had not thought about in years. I stopped walking. She stopped too. I realized then that this was not about talking anymore. It was about access. I tried one last test. I thought of a sentence I had never said out loud before. Not to anyone. Something I barely admitted to myself. I kept my mouth closed, heart racing, waiting. She said it anyway. Perfectly. My vision narrowed. My hands felt cold. It was like watching someone reach into a locked room inside me and turn on the light. I stepped back, shaking my head, telling her to stop. My voice cracked despite my effort to stay calm. She looked confused for the first time that night. Genuinely confused. Like she did not understand why I was upset. She said she was just keeping up. She said this was how it always went. That phrase again, always. I asked what she meant. She hesitated, then explained in a way that made my skin crawl. She said some people think loudly. She said some people leave echoes behind. She said she had learned to follow them. She said most people liked it at first. I backed away, putting distance between us. She did not follow this time. She just watched, head tilted slightly like she was studying a problem. I left without saying goodbye. I got in my car and locked the doors immediately. My hands were shaking so hard I had trouble starting it. The drive home felt unreal. My thoughts kept slipping, like they were not fully mine anymore. Every time I formed a sentence in my head, I half expected to hear her voice finishing it. When I got home, I sat on my bed and stared at the wall, forcing my mind to stay quiet. It felt like holding my breath for hours. Over the next few days, I noticed something was off. My thoughts did not feel as private as they used to. Sometimes they came already finished, fully formed, without the usual buildup. Sometimes they felt delayed, like they had been interrupted. I caught myself stopping mid-thought listening. Once in a crowded room, I heard her voice in my head, finishing something I had not meant to think yet. I jumped so hard people stared. I have not seen her again. She did not message, did not reach out. It felt like she had gotten what she wanted already. Sometimes, when I am alone and tired, I notice my thoughts lining up too neatly, like they are being organized for someone else. When that happens, I force myself to think nonsense. Fragments, half ideas, anything to keep ahead. I do not know if she can still hear them. I do not know if she ever stopped. All I know is that thinking used to feel automatic. Now it feels like something I have to protect. The worst part is that I almost posted the picture. That is what keeps messing with my head. If I had not noticed one small detail, it would have gone online like every other random photo from a random night, and nobody would have questioned it. I would have been tagged. People would have commented. Maybe someone would have joked about the lighting. And the version of me in that photo would have existed forever, smiling for a moment I do not remember lived through. It started on a night I only went out because staying in felt heavier than going. I had been scrolling on my bed, phone balanced on my chest, watching short videos until they all blurred together. When he messaged asking if I wanted to hang out, I said yes before thinking too hard. Not because I was excited, but because I did not want another night to just disappear. We met at a pop-up art event under an overpass downtown. Someone had strung lights between concrete pillars and called it a vibe. There were food trucks, local artists selling prints, and a projector looping old cartoons onto the wall. It was loud but not overwhelming. Messy but fun, the kind of place where nobody really stands out. He seemed normal. That is the theme now, I guess. Normal clothes, normal smile, normal jokes. He talked a lot, but not in a way that felt controlling. Just nervous energy. He kept pointing things out, asking what I thought, trying to keep the night moving. I felt fine, relaxed even. At some point we stopped near a mural painted on one of the pillars. It was half finished, faces melting into each other, bright colors dripping downward. He said it would make a good picture. I shrugged. I do not usually care about photos, but it felt harmless. He lifted his phone and told me to stand closer to the wall. I remember leaning back slightly, the cold concrete against my shoulders. I remember the projector light flickering across my face. I remember thinking about whether I looked tired. I do not remember smiling. That is the part that will not line up no matter how many times I replay it. He lowered the phone and laughed, saying it came out perfect. He turned the screen toward me. In the photo, I am smiling wide, not a small polite smile, a full one, teeth showing, cheeks lifted. My head is tilted slightly, like I am posing. My eyes are open and focused on the camera, and blood is running from them. Not pouring, not dramatic, just thin, dark lines slipping down from the corners, tracing my cheeks like tears. My eyes themselves look wrong, too glossy, too dark, like they are looking through the camera instead of at it. My stomach dropped so hard I thought I might throw up. I grabbed the phone without thinking, my fingers numb. The screen was warm from his hand. I zoomed in, my heart pounding so loud I could barely hear the music around us. It was real, not a filter, not a reflection. The blood followed the curve of my face naturally, soaking into the skin under my eyes. My smile looked frozen, stretched a little too far. I looked up at him, then back at the photo, then touched my own face. My skin was dry. No blood, no pain. My eyes felt normal. Tired maybe, but normal. I checked my reflection in the black screen of his phone. Nothing. I scrolled through the other photos he had taken that night. There were a few of the event, the mural, the crowd. Then another one of me, taken earlier without me noticing. In that one, I am not smiling. My face looks blank. My eyes are normal. The smiling one sat between them like it did not belong. I handed the phone back slowly, my hands shaking. He watched my face closely, like he was waiting for something. I tried to keep my voice steady when I asked why it looked like that. I expected confusion, surprise, anything. Instead, he shrugged it off in a way that made my skin crawl. He said sometimes cameras catch things people do not remember doing. He said it was probably just the light and motion blur. Motion blur does not bleed. I asked him to delete it. He hesitated for just a second too long. Then he laughed and said sure, if it bothered me that much. He tapped the screen a few times and turned the phone away so I could not see. He told me it was gone. I did not believe him. The rest of the night felt off. Sounds were too sharp. Lights felt too bright. I kept touching my face, checking my eyes and reflective surfaces. Nothing changed. But the image stayed burned into my mind, that version of me smiling like she knew something I did not. We walked around a bit more, but I was no longer present. Every time he raised his phone to take a picture of something else, my chest tightened. I started positioning myself out of frame without realizing it. I made an excuse to leave early, He seemed disappointed but not surprised, like this was how it usually went. That thought made my stomach twist even more. When I got home, I went straight to the bathroom and stared at myself in the mirror under the harsh light. I pulled my lower eyelids down, checking for redness. I splashed water on my face. I blinked hard. Nothing. I convinced myself it was some weird glitch. Phones mess up. Cameras distort things. I told myself I was tired and my brain had filled in gaps with fear. Then my phone buzzed. He had sent the photo. My hands went cold. I opened it slowly, my heart racing. It was the same one. Me smiling. Eyes bleeding. Clear as ever. I stared at it for a long time, my breath shallow. I noticed details I had missed before. The way my shoulders were slightly hunched, like I was leaning into something. The way my eyes reflected a light source that did not exist in the space. The way the blood did not drip past my jaw, stopping cleanly like it knew where to end. I scrolled up. There was a caption typed but not sent yet, like he had drafted it and saved it. Just one line. She looks happiest when she remembers. I blocked him immediately, deleted the photo from the chat, cleared my cache, restarted my phone. When I checked my gallery, it was not there. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that smile. It did not feel like imagination. It felt like recall, like my brain was trying to access something just out of reach. The next morning, my eyes hurt. Not badly. Just sore I had cried without remembering it. When I looked in the mirror, the skin under my eyes looked darker than usual. I blamed lack of sleep. I tried to move on, told myself to forget it. But over the next few days, strange things kept happening. My phone camera would open by itself sometimes. My gallery would lag when loading my face. Once, for a split second, I thought I saw the same smile reflected in a shop window before it snapped back to normal. A week later, a friend sent me a message asking why I had deleted a picture she liked. She said it had been on my tagged photos for a few minutes before disappearing. She asked if everything was okay. My heart dropped. I asked her to describe it. She said it was me at some art thing, smiling. She said the lighting was dramatic. She said she did not notice anything else weird. I did not ask more. I did not want to know what she did not see. That night, I turned off face recognition on every app, covered my camera with tape, avoided reflective surfaces. I felt ridiculous, but also desperate. Sometimes when my phone buzzes and lights up my face in the dark, I catch myself smiling without meaning to. When I notice, I force my face still and check my reflection, my eyes, my skin. So far, they are still mine. I used to think the worst dates were the boring ones. The kind where nothing clicks, and you spend the whole time planning how fast you can leave without being rude. This was not that. This was the kind that sneaks up on you later when you are alone and replaying it, and suddenly your stomach drops because you realize how many moments you ignored while they were happening. It started with a place I had never noticed before, even though it sat right off a road I used all the time. A small family-style restaurant wedged between a closed video store and a tire shop. Yellow lights in the windows, faded sign, the kind of place that feels stuck in a different decade. She suggested it, said it was quiet and easy. I did not question it. I was just glad not to go somewhere loud. I got there first and waited in my car longer than I meant to, scrolling through my phone, watching people come and go. I remember noticing that nobody ever seemed to leave alone. Couples went in together and came out together. Families too. I told myself that was normal and finally went inside. The smell hit me right away. Cooked meat, old oil, something sweet underneath like overripe fruit. The place was almost empty, which felt weird for dinner time. A few booths were occupied, but nobody looked up when I walked in. It was like I had stepped into a paused scene. She was already seated in a corner booth, facing the wall instead of the room. I almost walked past her. When she waved, it felt delayed, like she had waited until the exact second I would notice. I slid in across from her and tried to relax. She looked normal. That is always the detail that messes with me. No creepy smile, no intense stare, just a calm expression and tired eyes. She asked about my day, listened when I talked, nodded at the right times. Nothing felt forced. If anything, it felt like she was too comfortable, like she had done this exact thing many times before. The waiter came by almost immediately. Older guy, tired posture, pen already moving before we ordered. He glanced at her first, then at me, then back at her. Something passed between them that I could not read. Not a smile, not a frown, just recognition. We ordered simple stuff, nothing fancy. I noticed the waiter did not write anything down for her, just nodded and moved on. Again, I brushed it off. While we waited, I started noticing little things. The way she always kept her hands folded on the table. The way she never looked around the room, only at me or straight ahead. The way she reacted a second too early to things, like she knew what I was about to say before I said it. The food came fast, too fast. Still hot, but like it had been ready already. She barely touched hers, just pushed it around the plate. I ate because I did not want to be awkward, but every bite tasted off. Not bad, just wrong, like the flavors did not line up. Halfway through, I realized the people in the other booths had not changed. Nobody new had come in. Nobody had left. Time felt stretched, like the clock was stuck, but everything else kept moving. She asked me questions that felt rehearsed. Not scripted exactly, but familiar, like she had asked them before and already knew how the answers usually went. When I gave a response she did not expect, her eyebrow twitched slightly as she tilted her head, recalculating. Eventually the plates were cleared. The waiter came back with a check without asking if we wanted dessert. He placed it closer to her than to me. Then he looked at her and asked something that made my chest tighten instantly. He asked if it was the same outcome as usual. He did not look confused. He did not look joking. It sounded routine, like asking if someone wanted their receipt. Before I could even process what that meant, she nodded. Just like that, no hesitation, no question. The waiter nodded back and walked away. I sat there frozen, staring at the check like it might explain something. My brain scrambled for a normal explanation. Maybe it was an inside joke. Maybe I misheard. Maybe outcome meant how they split the bill. Anything. I almost laughed for the nerves. I asked her what that was about. She smiled softly, like I had asked something innocent. She told me not to worry about it. She said it always sounds worse than it is. That answer did not help at all. I looked around the restaurant again. The people in the booths were still there, but now I noticed something else. They were all watching us. Not openly, not staring, but paying attention in that subtle way you feel more than see. Like when a room was quiet without you realizing why. The check total was oddly low. I thought about the rule she set earlier about writing prices as numbers dollars, but realized this was my life, not a story. Still, the number made no sense. I reached for my wallet. She told me it was already taken care of. That made my stomach twist even more. The waiter returned with a small slip of paper and set it beside the check. He did not look at me this time. He only addressed her. He confirmed the outcome with a single word and waited. She nodded again. That was when the other booths started emptying. Not all at once. One by one. Quietly. People stood up, paid at the front, and left. Nobody glanced at us on their way out. Nobody said anything. Within a minute, the restaurant was empty except for us and the staff. I asked if we should go. My voice sounded too loud in the sudden quiet. She said we could, but it was usually better to wait. That word again. Usually. My heart was pounding. I stood up anyway, ready to leave whether she followed or not. The moment I slid out of the booth, the waiter blocked the aisle. Not aggressively, just standing there, hands folded, polite expression. He told me the outcome needed to be completed before anyone left. I felt trapped. My skin crawled. I looked back at her, expecting fear or apology. Instead, she looked almost bored, like this part always took too long. She explained it then, in the calmest way possible. She said the restaurant tracked patterns, first dates, second dates, endings. She said people always thought their night was unique, but most of them ended the same way. She said the staff liked to know what to expect. She said the outcome was never violent. That was supposed to be comforting. The waiter stepped aside and gestured toward the back hallway. The door led somewhere I had not noticed before. It blended into the wall, painted the same color. My legs felt weak, but I walked. I do not know why. Maybe shock. Maybe curiosity. Maybe the part of my brain that still thought this could all be explained if I just saw it through. The hallway led to a small room with a single table and 2 chairs. Nothing else. No windows. Bright light overhead. The waiter closed the door behind us and waited outside. She sat down like she had done this before. She told me to sit too. I did. She explained that the outcome was simple. The date would end the way it always did. One person would leave with a clear memory of everything. The other would leave with gaps, fuzzy edges, doubts. She said it helped people move on faster. Helped the restaurant keep its rhythm. She said sometimes she was the one who forgot. Sometimes she was the one who remembered. Tonight she had already chosen. I felt dizzy. I tried to stand up again, but my legs did not cooperate. My head felt heavy, like I had not slept in days. She leaned forward and apologized in a detached way. She said I seemed nice enough. She said she hoped I would not mind too much. The light overhead buzzed softly. My vision blurred at the edges. I remember thinking about the food, about how wrong it tasted, about how low the check had been. The next thing I knew, I was sitting in my car outside the restaurant. The engine was off. My phone buzzed in my hand with a missed call notification from a number I did not recognize. I looked at the building. The lights were off. The sign was dark. The place looked abandoned, like it had been closed for years. I tried to remember her face clearly. I could not. Details slipped away when I focused on them. I knew I had been on a date. I knew something bad had happened, but the shape of it refused to stay still in my mind. On my passenger seat was a small slip of paper, the same one the waiter had set down. It was blank, except for 2 words written faintly in the center. Same outcome. I threw it away at the next stoplight. Even now, I do not remember deciding to do that. I just know I did. Sometimes I pass that spot on the road and feel uneasy for no clear reason. I do not see the restaurant anymore, just a tire shop and the empty space beside it. But I know if it ever lights up again, someone else will think they're just going on a normal date. I did not notice my fingers hurting at first. That is the part that scares me the most now. Pain usually gets attention right away, but this was quiet, like my body was dealing with it without telling me yet. The night started with that same lazy excitement you get before a date where you do not expect much. Not nervous, not hopeful, just curious enough to leave the house. I met him at a small outdoor market by the river. It was one of those pop-up things with string lights, food trucks, and people pretending they were having a better time than they actually were. Music playing from somewhere too far away to identify. I remember thinking it was a good place because there were lots of people around. Safe. Open. Nothing could really go wrong there. He showed up smiling, waved, and immediately reached for my hand. I barely had time to react before his fingers were wrapped around mine. It felt sudden, but not aggressive. Just confident. Like it was the most natural thing in the world. I hesitated for half a second, then let it happen because pulling away right away felt awkward. I told myself it was fine. Some people are just touchy. We started walking through the stalls, still holding hands. His grip was firm but not painful. Warm, steady. I noticed he walked a little slower than me, so I had to match his pace. He did not say much, but he did not need to. Every time I tried to shift my hand or loosen my fingers, his grip adjusted without squeezing harder, just enough to keep everything in place. At first it felt almost comforting, like being anchored. I focused on the lights overhead, the smell of fried food, the sound of laughter around us. I tried to relax. I tried to enjoy it. We stopped at a stand selling drinks. I reached for my wallet with my free hand. He did not let go. I had to awkwardly twist my wrist to open my bag. He watched calmly, like this was normal. When we started walking again, his thumb rubbed the back of my hand in a slow pattern over and over, like he was keeping count of something. I started to feel restless. My fingers tingled a little, like they do when you've held something too long. I tried to flex them, but there was no room. His hand seemed to mold around mine perfectly, leaving no space to move. I told myself I was overthinking it, that I just was not used to this. We walked past the river, away from the main crowd. The lights were dimmer here, the noise softer. I noticed my arm was starting to feel tired, like I had been holding it in one position for too long. I tried to switch hands casually. He did not follow the movement. Instead, his grip tightened just a bit, not enough to hurt, but enough to stop me. I laughed it off in my head, told myself he probably thought I was joking around. I did not want to make it weird by pulling away suddenly. I kept walking. Minutes passed, then more. I lost track of time. My fingers started to feel stiff, like they were slowly locking into place. The tingling turned into a dull ache. I became very aware of my hand, of every joint, every tendon. It felt like my body was bracing for something without telling me why. We sat down on a bench near the water. He sat close, knees touching mine. He did not let go. My arm was pinned between us. I tried resting my elbow on the back of the bench to change the angle, but it did not help. My wrist felt tight. My fingers felt swollen. I finally tried to pull my hand back gently, pretending I needed to adjust my hair. That is when I realized my fingers would not straighten. They were clenched around his hand, curled inward like they had decided on their own to stay that way. I tried to open them, but the muscles would not respond. Panic flickered through me, sharp and fast. I did not show it. I forced my face to stay neutral. He did not react, did not look surprised. His grip did not change at all. If anything, it felt like he was supporting my hand, holding it in the exact position it wanted to be in. I tried again, this time with more effort. My fingers trembled slightly but stayed curled. Pain shot up my forearm, a deep ache that made my stomach drop. I realized then how long we had been holding hands. Not minutes, not even half an hour. It felt like hours, like my body had been stuck in this pose for too long. I glanced around, suddenly aware of how far from the crowd we were. There were still people around, but they felt distant, like part of the background. Nobody was paying attention to us. Nobody noticed my stiff posture or the way I was breathing too fast. He looked at me then, really looked like he was checking something off a list. His expression was calm, almost gentle. I got the sense he had been waiting for this moment. I shifted my weight, trying to stand up. He stood with me, still holding my hand. My fingers screamed in protest, the pain sharp now, undeniable. My hand felt foreign, like it belonged to someone else. We started walking again, back toward the main path. I focused on putting one foot in front of the other, on not letting the fear show. My fingers were cramping harder now, curling tighter. My palm felt slick with sweat. I could not feel the tips of my fingers anymore. I tried one last time to pull away, this time more forcefully. That is when I felt it. Not pressure from him, but resistance from my own hand. Like my muscles had forgotten how to let go. Like they had been clenched for so long they thought this was normal now. My heart was pounding. My arm felt heavy, useless. I imagined my hand stuck like this forever, curled around nothing, frozen in place. We reached a brighter area near the food trucks again. Noise washed over us. Laughter. Music. Life continuing like nothing was wrong. He finally loosened his grip, slowly, carefully, like releasing something fragile. My hand dropped to my side immediately. My fingers stayed curled, shaking. Pain throbbed through them, intense and burning. I tried to straighten them with my other hand, but they resisted, stiff and locked. He watched calmly as I struggled, like he had seen this before. After a few seconds, my fingers slowly began to relax one by one, like they were waking up from a deep sleep. The pain lingered, sharp and uncomfortable, but at least I could move again. I made an excuse to leave, barely aware of what I was doing. I turned and walked away without looking back. My hand ached the entire way home, sore and stiff like I had held onto something far too tightly for far too long. That night, I lay in bed staring at my hand, opening and closing it over and over, just to make sure it still listened to me. Every time I closed my eyes, I could still feel his grip, steady and patient, like he knew my body better than I did. Even now, sometimes my fingers ache for no reason. They curl slightly when I am not paying attention. When that happens, I have to stop whatever I am doing and consciously force them open, just to remind myself that I can. The first thing that keeps replaying in my head is not her face or the place or even the weird thing she said later. It is the laugh. It happened too early before anything funny could have existed. That is what hooked into my brain and refused to let go. I remember thinking my phone had glitched or my thoughts had jumped ahead somehow because the timing made no sense. Laughter is supposed to follow something. Hers showed up first, like a shadow arriving before the body. I had almost canceled that night. I was tired in that bored way where everything feels flat, and the idea of meeting someone new felt like work. But I had already agreed, and backing out felt awkward. So I grabbed my jacket and headed out, telling myself it was just a date, and it would probably be forgettable by morning. We met at a late-night bowling alley on the edge of town. Not the fun neon kind, but an old one with cracked floors and machines that ate your money. It smelled like disinfectant and old shoes. the kind of place where the walls have heard too much. I liked it because it was loud enough to hide silence. She was already there when I walked in, sitting on a plastic bench with a pair of shoes beside her. She waved like she had been watching the door for a while. Again, normal. Nothing scary. Messy ponytail, oversized hoodie, relaxed posture. If you passed her in the hallway at school, you would not think twice. We started bowling. Badly. The lanes were uneven and the pins kept resetting wrong. We laughed at how terrible we were, and for a bit it felt normal. My guard dropped a little. I remember thinking maybe this would actually be fine. Then it happened. I had just picked up the ball, lining up my shot. My brain was empty, focused on not slipping. Before I even moved, she laughed. Not a polite laugh. Not a small one. A full laugh that came from deep, like she had just read the punchline of something hilarious. It startled me so bad I almost dropped the ball on my foot. I turned to look at her, confused, scanning my brain for whatever I must have said without realizing it. There was nothing. No joke, no comment, no weird face, just me standing there with a bowling ball. She was still laughing, wiping at her eyes like she could not stop. People in the next lane glanced over. My face felt hot. I felt stupid, like I was missing something obvious. When she finally calmed down, I asked what was funny. I expected her to say something about my stance or the way I looked concentrating. Something normal. Instead, she told me she was laughing about the way I died last time. She said it casually, like she was talking about a bad movie ending. No smile. No dramatic pause. Just a statement dropped into the air between us. My brain froze. There was no immediate fear, just confusion so thick it felt physical. I waited for her to laugh again, to show it was a joke. She did not. She just watched my face, studying how the words landed. I laughed awkwardly, because that is what people do when reality slips. I told myself she meant something else. Maybe a dream. Maybe a story. Maybe she was just weird and leaned into dark humor too hard. People do that. I bawled. I do not remember the throw. The ball rolled down the lane and missed everything. We kept playing, but the air had changed. Every movement felt heavier. She acted completely normal again, talking about random stuff, commenting on the music, complaining about the shoes. Like nothing strange had happened at all. But I could not let it go. The phrase kept looping in my head. Last time. Like there had been another time. Like she was referencing something we both should remember. I started noticing other things. Small details that felt off only after the fact. How she finished my sentences sometimes. How she predicted which pin would wobble and fall. How she moved like she knew the layout of the place too well, never hesitating, never checking signs. At one point, she mentioned a scar on my arm that I usually keep covered. She described exactly where it was without seeing it. When I pulled my sleeve up, she nodded like she had just confirmed something. I asked how she knew. She said she remembered it. Remembered from when was my next thought, but I did not ask. I was starting to feel like asking questions made things worse. We sat down to take a break, sharing a basket of fries that tasted like oil and salt. She did not eat much. She mostly watched me again, but not in the same way as a diner story you might expect. It was more like she was comparing me to something in her head, checking for differences. The noise of the bowling alley faded into the background. I felt like we were alone in a bubble that had nothing to do with the rest of the world. She leaned back and told me details about my life I had not shared, the name of my old dog, the layout of the place I used to live before moving, the way my room looked when I was younger. Every time I reacted, she tilted her head slightly, like she was updating a mental list. I finally asked her directly what she meant earlier, about dying. She did not answer right away. She just stared at the lanes, watching someone else bowl. Then she explained it in the most unsettling, calm way possible. She said sometimes people repeat. Sometimes things do not stick the first time. Sometimes you get sent back and only a few things change. She said most people never notice. She said she always does. I felt cold all over. My hands were sweaty and my mouth was dry. I wanted to laugh it off, but the words would not come. Nothing about her tone suggested she was joking. There was no excitement, no thrill, just certainty. She described how it happened. Not dramatically. Just facts. Where I was. What went wrong. How quick it was. She mentioned a sound I still hear sometimes in my sleep, though I have never told anyone about that. My chest tightened so hard it hurt. I stood up suddenly, knocking my chair back. I told her I needed to leave. She nodded like she expected that too. As we walked toward the exit, she stayed a step behind me. I could feel her eyes on my back. She told me not to worry, that this one felt different. She said I was doing better already. Outside, the night air felt unreal. The parking lot lights buzzed overhead. My car sat exactly where I remembered parking it, but for a second I felt like it might not be mine, like I was stepping into someone else's place. She stopped a few feet away and told me to be careful on the drive home. She mentioned a specific intersection I take all the time. She mentioned Brain. I did not respond. I just got in the car and locked the doors. My hands were shaking so bad I had trouble starting it. In the mirror, she stood there calmly, not waving, not moving, like she was watching a replay she had already seen. The drive home was a blur. Every headlight looked too bright. Every intersection felt wrong. I took a different route, just in case. When I got home, I sat in the car for a long time before going inside, listening to the engine tick as it cooled. That night, I read through old messages and photos, looking for proof that this was all in my head. I found nothing. But when I closed my eyes, I could picture exactly what she described. Not like imagination, like memory. I never saw her again. She never messaged. It was like the night had been enough. Sometimes when something small goes wrong, I feel that same laugh echo in my head, too early, out of place, arriving before the moment it belongs to. I keep thinking about the exact moment things went wrong, like if I replay it enough I will find a different path. It always starts the same way in my head. Me lying on my bed with my phone lighting up my face, word out of my mind, scrolling past the same stuff over and over. Nothing dramatic. No warning music. Just that heavy bored feeling where you would agree to almost anything if it meant not feeling stuck for one more night. That is how I ended up agreeing to meet him. We matched earlier that week. His profile was plain in a way that felt safe. Normal pictures. Nothing flashy. Nothing that screamed danger. He liked the same dumb memes I did. His messages were short and chill. Not clingy. Not creepy. Just enough to keep my attention. When he suggested meeting up, I said yes without overthinking it. I wish I had overthought it. We met at a coffee place near a bus station. Not cute. Not trendy. Just one of those places where people pass through and nobody notices anyone else. I liked that. It felt low pressure. I got there early and sat near the window, watching people rush by outside. I remember feeling weirdly calm, like this was just another forgettable thing that would fade by the next day. Then he showed up and sat across from me like he had been there before, like he knew exactly where to sit. He did not hesitate to look around. He just slid into the chair and smiled. Something about that stuck with me later. At first, everything felt fine. Not amazing, not terrible. Just fine. He talked about random stuff, school, work, nothing deep. I noticed he never asked many questions, but when he did, they were oddly specific. Like he already knew the answer and just wanted confirmation. I brushed it off because some people are just awkward. The first strange moment happened when he casually mentioned the street I live on. Not asking, just stating it like a fact. My stomach tightened instantly. I laughed it off, telling myself maybe I had mentioned it earlier and forgot, but I was pretty sure I had not. I am careful about that stuff. I always have been. I asked how he knew and he shrugged it off in a vague way that did not really explain anything. I remember feeling embarrassed for feeling nervous, like I was being dramatic. I did not want to be the person who freaks out over nothing, so I stayed. We walked around after getting drinks, just wandering with no plan. It was already getting dark and the street lights were flickering on. He walked slightly ahead of me, never bumping into anyone, like he knew exactly where people would be. I noticed he kept glancing at his phone, not texting, just checking something quickly and then locking the screen. When we stopped near a clothes store, he mentioned how closed my place was. Again, not asking, just stating. He even pointed in the right direction. My heart started racing. I told him I was not heading home yet. He nodded like he expected that answer. We eventually split up, and I practically ran to the bus stop once he was out of sight. I remember gripping my phone so hard my fingers hurt. The ride home felt way longer than usual. Every time the bus stopped, I expected him to be there. Stepping on like this was all part of the plan. He never did. When I got home, I locked the door and checked every window even though I knew I was being paranoid. I tried to calm down by watching random videos, but I could not focus. His face kept popping into my head. Not smiling, just watching. A few days passed. Nothing happened. No messages from him. No weird calls. I started convincing myself it was just a bad date and my brain had turned it into something bigger. I almost felt silly for how scared I had been. Then one night I could not sleep. My phone was already in my hand, so I opened my location settings for no real reason. I do not even know what made me do it. I just had this urge, like I needed to check something but did not know what yet. That is when I saw it. My location history showed I had been home almost constantly for weeks. Not just at night. Not just sometimes. It said home during times I knew I was not there. During classes. During trips. Even during a night I had slept at a friend's place across town. The map showed the same spot over and over, like I never left. I refreshed it. Closed the app. Opened it again. Same thing. My chest felt tight. I started scrolling back further. Every day marked as home. No gaps. No movement. Like someone had pinned me there and refused to let me leave. I checked the address tied to the location. It was mine. Exactly. No mistake. I felt dizzy. My first thought was that my phone was broken, that it was a glitch, but it did not make sense. Glitches do not follow a pattern that perfect. Glitches do not know where you live. Then I remembered him pointing down my street, him saying it like a fact, him checking his phone over and over. My hands started shaking so bad I almost dropped the phone. I checked the app permissions. Nothing new. Nothing strange. I checked for unknown devices. Nothing. I checked everything I could think of, but the map did not change. It still said I was home. It still said I had been home. I barely slept that night. Every sound in the apartment felt louder. The hum of the fridge. The building settling. Footsteps in the hallway that could have been anyone. I lay there staring at the ceiling, imagining someone else being tracked instead of me. Someone else being watched. The next day I noticed small things I had ignored before. My door feeling like it had been unlocked recently. My shoes not exactly where I left them. My trash smelling stronger than usual like it had been gone through. Nothing I could prove. Nothing solid. Just enough to keep my heart racing. I checked my phone again that afternoon, still home. Even while I was standing outside, staring at the building from across the street. The dot of the map did not move. It stayed inside, waiting. I blocked him, deleted the app, turned my phone off for an hour just to breathe. When I turned it back on, the location history filled in the gap as home, like it knew, like it filled it in for me. That night, I packed a bag and stayed somewhere else. I barely slept again. When I checked my phone in the morning, it still said home. Still showed me there in my bed, in my room, reading quietly. I never went back to that coffee place. I never saw him again. But sometimes late at night, my phone lights up and I feel that same tight feeling in my chest. I do not even open the app anymore. I do not want to see where it says I am, because part of me is scared it is telling the truth. I did not think this would turn into the kind of story people dare each other to tell at sleepovers. It started normal enough, which almost makes it worse. I remember thinking that if something bad was going to happen, I would have noticed some warning sign earlier. But that is not how it went. It felt like one of those nights where nothing matters and you were just killing time. And then later you realized that was the last calm moment you had. I'd met her through a friend of a friend. Not an app, not some dramatic setup. Just a board group chat, and someone saying we should hang out. She had this quiet energy that made me curious. Not shy, just observant. Like she was always waiting for something to happen. When she suggested we meet at an all-night diner on the edge of town, I thought it was kind of funny. That diner was where people went when everything else was closed, and they had nothing better to do. It smelled like old fries and burned coffee, and the lights were way too bright for how late it was. I got there first and slid into a booth with ripped vinyl seats. The menu was sticky, and I had to peel my fingers off it. I remember thinking about how tired I was and how I probably should have just stayed home and read some random stuff online until I fell asleep. Then she walked in. She did not look scary. That is important. She looked normal. Hoodie, messy hair, no makeup. She smiled in a way that felt practiced, like she knew how to look friendly without actually giving anything away. We did the awkward wave thing and sat across from each other. The waiter came by and asked what we wanted. I ordered a burger and fries because I was starving. She ordered nothing, not even a drink. At first, I thought maybe she was nervous. Some people do that. They wait to order until later. But when the food came, she still did not order. She just watched. Not in a cute way. Not like she was impressed. She leaned her chin on her hand and stared at my plate like it was a show. Every time I picked up a fry, her eyes followed it. Every time I took a bite, she looked at my mouth. It made me suddenly very aware of how loud chewing is in a quiet place. I tried to ignore it and eat anyway. I was hungry and the burger was actually decent, which surprised me. Grease dripping, bun slightly soggy, the kind of food you regret later but love in the moment. She did not touch anything on the table. Not the napkins, not the sugar packets. She just sat there watching. I finally asked why she was not eating, trying to sound casual. She answered without any emotion, saying she already ate on her way there. Then she casually wiped the corner of her mouth with her sleeve. I noticed a dark smear on the fabric. Not sauce. Not makeup. It was too dark for that. It was blood. She wiped it like it was nothing, like it happened all the time. My stomach dropped. I laughed awkwardly because that is what people do when they are uncomfortable and do not want to admit it. I told myself it could have been anything. Nosebleed. Cut lip. Anything. But the way she watched me did not change. If anything, she seemed more focused now, like she was waiting for something else. The diner felt different after that. The lights felt harsher. The noise from the kitchen sounded louder. I became hyper-aware of everything. The scrape of plates, the hum of the fridge, the way the waiter kept glancing at us and then looking away quickly. I wondered if he noticed too. She leaned forward a bit, elbows on the table, eyes locked on my face. Her pupils looked huge in the bright light. She breathed slowly, evenly. I started eating faster just to have something to do, which made it worse. I felt gross, like an animal being observed. Every swallow felt like a mistake. I tried changing the subject in my head, thinking about school, about dumb videos, about anything else. But I kept noticing little things. Her hands were stained near the nails, like she had tried to wash something off and failed. There was a faint metallic smell when she moved, barely noticeable but enough to make my nose wrinkle. When she smiled, it did not reach her eyes. At some point, she reached out and slid one of my fries closer to her. She did not eat it. She just touched it, pressing it flat against the table, smearing grease into the surface. Then she pulled her hand back and licked her finger clean. Slow, deliberate. My appetite disappeared instantly. I told myself to finish up and leave. I checked my phone under the table, pretending to read a message. There was nothing there. I considered faking a call, but that felt too obvious. I just wanted out without making it weird. But it was already weird. There was no fixing that. When I looked back up, she was staring at my neck, not my face. My neck, her head tilted slightly, like she was lining something up. My skin crawled. I pushed my plate away, half the burger left, fries untouched. She looked disappointed, like I had ended a movie early. She leaned back and sighed, finally breaking eye contact. She wiped her mouth again, this time with a napkin. When she dropped it on the table, I saw fresh red soaking through the paper. There was no panic in her movements. No rush to hide it. She knew I saw. I stood up so fast the table shook. I mumbled something about needing air and grabbed my jacket. She did not follow me right away. She just watched me stand there, trapped between staying and leaving. Then she smiled again, wider this time, teeth slightly red near the gums. I walked out without looking back. The cold air hit me like a slap. I stood under the flickering neon sign, trying to slow my breathing. My hands were shaking. I told myself to calm down, that I was overreacting, that I had just gone on a bad date with a weird girl and that was it. Then the door opened behind me. I did not turn around. I could feel her presence, like the air got heavier. She stood close. Too close. I could smell her now clearly. Iron and something rotten underneath. She did not touch me. She did not need to. I could feel her attention like pressure on my skin. I took a step forward. She matched it. Another step. Same distance. I started walking faster toward my car. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would burst. I reached the driver door, fumbling with my keys. They slipped out of my hand and clattered onto the pavement. She bent down faster than I could react and pick them up. When she handed them back, her fingers brushed mine. They were warm. Too warm and sticky. She smiled again and tilted her head, eyes flicking to my throat one more time. There was dried blood on her chin now, no effort to hide it. I grabbed the keys and got in the car. I locked the doors immediately. She stood there watching, hands at her sides, calm as ever. I started the engine and backed out fast, tires squealing. In the mirror, I saw her standing under the diner lights, completely still, blood visible even from that distance. I did not go home right away. I drove around for almost an hour, checking my mirrors constantly. Every shadow looked like her. Every red light felt like a trap. When I finally parked, I sat in the car for a long time before going inside, listening for footsteps that never came. I blocked her number that night, deleted the chat, told our mutual friend it just did not work out. I never mentioned the blood or the way she watched me eat. I never went back to that diner. Sometimes I still think about the half-eaten burger sitting on that table, cooling under those lights, and the way she looked at me like I was next.